why she loves you, how this relationship was God ordained. I can definitely see it. But then infidelity reared its ugly head into y'all's marriage. How did that happen, Raven?
So he was in California for school, and we had a horrible argument. We honestly, every time we argued, it was always about his mom or his family. And because of something that I saw or how I felt, I didn't necessarily know how to express to him to the point where he could understand exactly how I felt. So one night there was an argument about a situation, and that changed everything. I had immediately just checked out. I was just done. I didn't even care if we were married, if we were together anymore. Because it just felt like it was just never going to stop. Like it was like, will you please just get it? But I decided, that's fine. I went back to Vegas, and I had just had a job. I just got a new job, and it was this guy. He appeared as a friend. He would listen. He would, make me laugh, and it was everything that I wasn't getting at that time. And sure enough, it led to infidelity.
And then how long did it take for him to find knowledge about it?
Oh no, that it was immediate.
Yeah.
Because it was convicting. Like I literally I was convicted. Like I was like, I cannot hold that. Like I called him immediately, and we were both in tears.
So you called him immediately. I want to put a reference around it. Immediately.
Hey guys, welcome to Little Blackburn 91. Listen, I promise you guys I will do a whole live on this particular video and break it all the way down. It is an interesting conversation. I'll tell you this now. We're talking about obviously where the wife cheated on the husband. I've done 2 videos actually where a wife in ministry has cheated on her husband. And I always say this is that men don't often talk about when they get cheated on. Okay. I know a lot of times the anecdotal story is that, men are just serial cheaters. It's always the men. The reality of the situation is always women that speak about their situations. It's just like when you don't find men speaking about relationships very often, right? You don't hear about the breakup of why that relationship broke down. A lot of times you don't see it. Now, if you're somebody who's been out in the streets, you very much know that the men and the women are equal in this particular play. If you've been out in the streets long enough, you will know that both men and women are out here in these streets doing stuff they should not be doing and behaving inappropriately if they're in a relationship. But this is a wonderful video. I'll tell you why. Because this gentleman here finds the strength of Christ to be able to forgive his wife, right? Because obviously they had an argument, she stepped out. This is when they were very, very young, okay? But it was like in their early 20s, similar to most couples actually when they come on this platform and talk about their stories. And what's intriguing about the situation is that she told him straight away. But at the time, he actually was going he had a scholarship. He had torn his meniscus. He was trying to move them to Atlanta because of the football that he did. He had married her early. And whilst in that downward spiral space, the place where most men talk about the fear of ever feeling like their woman would leave them, that's when she decided to cheat. Now, am I trying to shoot her down? No. I actually followed their story at the time, and when this came out, this is when it went viral. But he actually had this story's come out about 2 years ago, and before that, their story went viral. That's why they came on this platform. But also, the incident happened about 9 years before this, right? So you can imagine they've already lived it, experienced it. It's been 6 years at least clear because it took 3 years for him to heal. So, it's been a little bit of a while. But this particular story here, yeah, we're going to break it all the way down and we're going to talk about it. But like I said before, the reality situations are a lot of times men do not talk about when they get cheated on because it is embarrassing for men, and other men respect other men's opinions, right? And of course, your stature and your standard is your stature and standard in society is very important for us as a man. Now, whether women agree with that or not doesn't make no difference to me. That's how men operate. We want to be respected by other men, and actually, women do look at men, and if that man is not respected by men in that community, women are also turned off. So your respect amongst other men is very important, which is why most men don't talk about when they got cheated on by another woman. Yeah, most men don't, right? I remember a time when I was at a church camp, and I told the boys about my story, about how foolish I was about taking a girl back after she said she didn't want me, and I begged for her to come back. And do you know they all laughed at me? And I laughed at me too, because I said it was buffoonery. It was stupidity on my behalf that I that I found myself in that position. As men, that's what we do. Okay, so it's very rare that men will come out and tell you a story about them being cheated on, because again, it is not profitable oftentimes to tell that kind of story. There's embarrassment and shame that will happen. It's not a safe space. Okay, and whether we agree with that or not makes no difference. That's how society is, and that's what we have at the moment. We can try and change that, but the reality of the situation, that's what it is. But we're gonna go back to the beginning of the story and talk about how he was graced to forgive her for the cheating. Okay, to forgive her. As you guys know, I'm doing a little bit of a series on this. So let's go back to the very beginning. Let's listen to a story, and let's start to break it down.
Yeah, see, a lot of women don't believe that men are watching this podcast, but men, they watch stuff on the low. You know, they watch it on the low and they comment on the low. So thank y'all so much. This episode is going to be extremely powerful. I'm so honored. Why do you think I have y'all on the podcast?
The impact of the testimony.
The impact of the testimony. We're going to call this episode, She Cheated, He Forgave.
I like it.
I do too.
So let me tell you why this is so important. I'm trying not to get emotional, because I tell people that I bring guests on my podcast because it has to relate to my past, my present, or my future. And so y'all are the epitome of something that I wanted to do when I was married. When I was married, I cheated on my wife, cheated on her actually multiple times, but I've always wanted to come out and share that story while I was married. And so I talked to her, I said, man, listen, man, I don't want to be one of those dudes that stepped out and I can't help other men understand how to rebuild trust and the damage of broken trust. And I said, hey, you know, can I share this testimony on Facebook? And she was like, no, I don't want you ever sharing that, because I don't want to have to answer questions about my family or whatnot, or answer questions why I stayed. And so I said, you know, I respected that decision, but I felt like I wasn't able to fulfill my purpose. I felt like the cheating, the infidelity didn't have the testimony in it by allowing other people to be set free. And so when I saw a video that you posted, Raven, you posted a video that went viral. I saw it a few months ago, and I said, that's amazing. It was a video you was dancing. I'm so glad trouble don't last always. And I said, first of all, I don't know nothing about that before her time. But I said, I love the fact that your husband was present in that video. He's present in those videos, standing like the king that he is.
Appreciate it.
Yes,
A lot of people say that, you know, we all know that men cheat. We've heard it dozens of times. But we normally don't ever get a chance to hear a man forgiving his wife for infidelity. So Keith,
yes,
I'm gonna jump right in. What made you forgive her?
The main thing that made me forgive was really just like I always saw my parents go through different things growing up, but I also had the opportunity to see them work through it. And so seeing that, okay, yeah, it may not be the same as somebody just having an everyday argument or anything like that, but recognizing that this is the person that I said my vows to, that we made this covenant not only between ourselves, but with God. This is somebody that I already said I'll be willing to work through things for better or for worse.
Yes.
And this is just one of those things.
Okay, let me start this first and foremost. I want everyone to hear my heart when I say this, okay? I want everyone to hear my heart. Something that my dad told me a couple of years ago, right? And it always stuck with me. He said, I remember him saying, one of the ex-girlfriends that I had, I remember he said to me, basically, you were like a lost puppy. He's like, I couldn't tell you because, you know, I didn't want to, you know, cause you pain. You know what I'm saying to you? And he was like, listen, the way that you were operating in that relationship, you might have thought you were more stronger than you were, but I was looking at you and she was stronger than you. And I said, wait, what? I said, what do you mean? I remember when he told me, I said, immediately said, no, that's not true. I was definitely strong in that. And he said, no, my boy, she was stronger than you. Funny enough, that's the particular relationship the girl also stepped out, right? And something that I've noticed, and it's, again, I want to be very, very cautious about what I'm saying, because I want to make it very, very clear about what I'm trying to really install here. I'm looking at Keith, and before he even said anything, body language. Now, this man played football, American football. This man was obviously, you know, a well-built individual. But there is something about aura and something about energy that tells someone that you are an assertive person. It's not his tone of voice necessarily, but the energy that I'm seeing coming across the screen, even though he's a bigger lad, I'm not seeing I'm not maybe, and again, maybe I'm preconceiving it because again, I know the story. I'm like, I'm not seeing that strength necessarily. And I don't mean it in that way. He's a strong man, but what I mean by that in the sense of sometimes when you are, because obviously they got together when they were very, very young, when you're not 100% sure of yourself as a man, yeah, there's a struggle sometimes to imprint yourself in a relationship. Like when I was younger, you know, I may have thought of myself as being very, very wise, but I was definitely doing some stupid things, number one. And number two, I also came across, I love that word, meek. I came across as somebody who was very passive. And what I started realizing is as I was passive, I was meeting more assertive women, because assertive women tend to meet passive men, and assertive men tend to meet more passive women. It is the complementary energies that come across the table. Okay. Now, when I'm looking at him, I am seeing, I love that word. I want to take that word, Dami. Thank you very much. That meekness from him. And meekness is a good thing, but there has to be a level of assertiveness that comes across the table too. Otherwise, people tend to take advantage of you. So when I say about, oh, someone's a kind man, I can be kind, but I can be very assertive. You know what I'm saying to you? I can be kind, but I present an energy that you like, nah, don't ever take the mick out of that person. Sometimes we present kindness in a way that is nice. And I think that's the issue. It's like sometimes your kindness is niceness. And that's the issue. It's like if your kindness is just kindness, then it's cool. But when your kindness becomes niceness, and what I mean by that, it has a level of passivity, almost people-pleasing aspect, people tend to try and trample over you and take advantage of you. And when I was young, a lot of us as young men, we struggle in that area because we're not very astute. We're not very aware of ourselves and how we show up and how we purport ourselves in situations. So just before he even gets anywhere deep about him explaining about why he ended up actually forgiving her, I wanted to bring that alignment of what I was seeing personally. And I want to show you a video. I'll show you several videos actually that they posted at the time 2 years ago when it went viral. Okay, because I originally, when it came up, I actually reached out to Raven to interview her, and I've said this in my last video. I said I'm actually glad they didn't interview with me. I think it was the best choice for them to interview with Dear Future Wifey, because I think I would have questioned him more, and I would have probably not got the same testimony that they got from Dear Future Wifey. You know what I'm saying? Because I think my angle would have been, I want to know why this is happening, and the reason why I'm saying that is because there is, I don't know if I have the video. Okay, I need to try and find it. There's another video of Steve, CEO, with the man that, the doctor that his wife cheated on him, right? And I'm going to do a video on that as well. But what he was describing was exactly why I believe that a lot of men do end up getting cheated on. And again, I'm just going to be my own personal opinion, is that a lot of times it's not kindness what they're giving to their woman. What they're giving to their woman is that they are pedestalizing that woman. And what ends up happening is when you pedestalize her, right, you put her in a place of power and control. And she doesn't like that. It doesn't feel safe. I equivocate it to being like if you ever run across a bridge and the bridge had no barriers, how would you feel? Now you could run across that bridge, and as a full grown adult, you could run across it and you get to the other side, but you would feel unsafe as you run across the bridge, right? Because there's no barriers. And so for women and men, I'm going to say in most cases, I believe that most women and men want it to be, in terms of keeping that reciprocal energy and keeping in alignment with what we won't call patriarchal kind of standards. Women want the boundaries and they want the barriers, because it makes them feel safe in a world where they are first and foremost physically not as safe as they could be, because men exist in the world, right? So when you have a man that's in your life, you want him to provide the boundaries. You want him to make you feel safe. You want him to make you feel like he's got you covered. And so that doesn't mean he has to be a big, brawny man. It means it's the way that he operates within the case of the relationship. Yeah. And so in this instance, sometimes you do a disservice by having no boundaries, no barriers, or you pedestalizing the other person. And it's not to say you shouldn't be kind to your wife. You should always be kind to your girl, your wife, any woman in your life. You should be kind. Don't mistake kindness here with niceness. The two are two different things. You being nice to people oftentimes has got a manipulative aspect or lacks any kind of assertiveness. It's always passive because it always puts your needs at the side to to prop up someone else's needs. And I think that's a really important part for us as men, because it highlights things, right? It highlights how people should operate in a relationship, and how we should go about it. But like I said, I would love to get that, Stephen, if I can find it. I know what video it is, but if I can find a part where he was talking about it, I would do it, because it's like, I think a lot of men end up in that space. They think because they're being nice that they're loving, and they don't realize that they're doing themselves a disservice. And I was in that place before. But let me play a little video that they had. This is one of the videos that they actually played as well.
Don't stop now.
I can't play the music because it will get copyright, because the music is this is them talking about, obviously we have a podcast speaking on infidelity, so they were talking about this is one of the videos that they did and went viral at the time. There's another one that they did at the time as well. It went viral as well, and I think at the time people were just like, "Oh, it's a bit tough to take, bro. Like, you're rejoicing, you know what I mean?" Like, I think
you know, my husband, I gave him a hall pass. But here's the reason why I did that, is because I didn't want to take the responsibility of getting rid of all demons that I opened up my marriage to.
So and again, I don't want to, because again, I'll make it silent because I think it's going to cause us issues. But you can obviously see the wordings at the bottom. I think they've done a little thing. So she talks about the hall pass, but if you look at the body language, I don't know, but no, and I'm not saying I don't know. For me as a man, and maybe I am coming from a very entitled place, I remember I watched it and I still feel the same way. I don't like it. And it's not it is not the fact that they're talking about him getting cheated on. It is the way they're discussing it like this. And I remember I made a comment saying, this doesn't feel right. This doesn't feel right. It's not the fact you're talking about it. By the way, they should talk about it. It's the way they're deliberating it on this video. That's why it went viral at the time. This is why it went viral. This is before they went onto the couch. This is why it went viral. And so because of this, the rejoicing, very similar to what we saw about the men doing it to the women, right? This is also it. This is why I said that I don't know if he didn't take the hall pass. No, he didn't take the hall pass. He didn't take it. And he's going to explain it in the video. I'm just bringing that to you guys as well, right? He actually does talk in the end as well. Let me just play this.
If you want to stay in a marriage that's still on a downfall and just ride it out downhill, that's up to you if you want to make that choice. But I was not about to make that same choice if I know I also have another option of getting back in the face of God, praying for my marriage, praying.
And listen, there's nothing wrong with what he's saying about praying, for your marriage and having God at the center of it, because we want that to happen. As Christians, we want that to happen. I think it's we get it. They overcame cheating, and I get it. I just think it was probably the wrong way for me, and for a lot of people. But just like when people are talking about other podcasts, when it comes to, that pastor who cheated on his wife for 5 years. Yeah, and listen, I'm all here for testimonies. I'm not against them. I think testimonies are needed, bro. And it's funny because the funny thing is, when this happened to me, right? I remember I said to the Lord, if you can use, I said, look, I wanted to be the one to even testify for overcoming someone betraying me in a relationship. So I remember this. I remember where I was sitting when I said these things. So when I see their video, I know exactly this feeling that he's got, bro. And I remember at the time, I remember when it happened to me, and I said, Lord, you can turn this around and use it as a testimony of how you turned it around. Yeah, I remember when I got to the other side, I said, nah. Okay. After the Lord took me for a 12-month process, I said, you're right, Lord. You know what? I can't do it. You know what, Lord? I can't do it. You're right. I can't do it. I can't do it. And even to this, even today, like, I'm still undoing some of the passive behaviors that I have. That passivity will get you killed, right? So so for me personally, I'm gonna give my honest opinion of what I felt it was 2 years ago. Now they might have changed, but honestly, she knows who has the power in this relationship. I'm just gonna be honest with you. She knows who has the power in this relationship. For me personally, from my perspective, and I say that to say because it would have never come out this way. he allowed her to lead even in the storytelling. My God. There was no ownership from his perspective and his side. Of course, he didn't want to cheat. She did. But it seems like she is the one that's leading almost in a sense. So from my perspective, I'm saying that that's why the story has come out the way it has. Because we've seen how the story gets told when the men come out and tell the story. It's not like it's any better, to be honest. They just do it a different way, but it doesn't come out any better. But it's just, again, another understanding of what's actually happened here. Okay, so that was my perspective. So when I'm listening to this, I had already seen all these videos before I watched this thing 2 years ago. So now I'm seeing it again. Maybe 2 years later, I'm like, okay, let me look at it fresh new eyes. Number one, I respect the man for actually forgiving her. It's not easy to do that for a man or woman to forgive somebody. So I respect the fact he's done that. You know what I'm saying to you? It's they do, Jay. I would never be rejoicing. I can't lie to you. If I cheat on my wife, I don't have a wife yet, but I'm just saying to you, if I cheat on my wife, I don't mind us telling the story, but you wouldn't hear me telling the story in a way where I'll be like, we just overcomers. I'll be like, no, listen, come here. And maybe because of the way I've dealt with things, I'll be like, listen, keep it a buck. This ain't a thing to laugh about. And it's not a thing to smile about. It's not a thing to I can't even joke about this situation. I don't care if it was 10, 15 years ago. I can't joke about it. Because I know that I know I stepped out and I know the pain that she went through. Look, there's things that I've seen the last 2-3 years that I now wouldn't joke about, like children, women and having kids and stuff like that. And some things in relationships, I just can't joke about anymore. You know what I'm saying to you? Like for me, I'm just not going to do that. And it's because I've seen pain from people in such a way that I'm like, okay, I can't really joke with that anymore. You know what I'm saying to you? So, the rejoicing is not, the rejoicing is because of testimony they've overcome. And I want to be fair to them. It's just that I probably wouldn't have done it that way. I don't know and again, I'm not there. So maybe I'll see it differently. I just couldn't be smiling and laughing about it. The way I would tell it, I would still tell it 10 years later, like, damn, like that was crazy. If I'm sitting with the person, do you get what I'm saying to you? Like, if I'm not with the person anymore, maybe you can hear me tell a little bit of a joke. But if I'm still with that person, I'll be like, damn. Like, for instance, I told you guys a story about the girl in the back playground, like, where I was kids and she, liked me and I didn't like her. And then I shouted at her, right? I might make a joke now, but if I'm sitting in front of her, I'm not about to make a joke. You know what I'm saying to you? So that's why I'm like, I'm a little bit like, okay, for me personally, it wouldn't work that way. And yeah, so that's why I'm saying I'm listening to it. And I'm like, okay, cool. You know what I mean? But let's listen a bit more because there's more to it. And of course, she's very remorseful in this video. I'm not taking that away from her at all. She's very remorseful in this video. We can tell. I know she was cut up about it because again, it went viral. And I don't think she realized how viral it was going to go. And then now they're sitting on the couch. It's like, you know what I mean? Because there's no smiles here. It's funny because those videos, they did it together. But they got onto the couch and the smiles are gone. She understood the assignment. I'm not going to crack jokes while I'm here, right? But when they were on these things, they were doing the smiley.
Things that falls into the worst category, but we made these vows. I want to try and work this out. And so I had to make that decision with God. And then also too, like, it's a different person when, and as you know, like when you had your moments of stepping out, you're a different person than who you were when you first stood at the altar with that person.
Facts.
And every single time when I thought about even the thought of leaving, I would see us back at the altar. And I remember the person that I stood in front of and then looking at her during that time and during that moment, it was a different person. So I understood that, okay, God, whatever we're going through, this ain't the same person I married, but I know she's still in there. And I know that you're going to be the one that's going to be able to pull her out.
Good.
So I just had to put my faith in God.
So Keith and Raven, people hear y'all testimony. They think that thing happened 6 months ago or 2 months ago or a month ago. Let's put context around this. Because people are like, I can't believe they just seem like everything fine.
Right.
She just cheated on him yesterday and they laughing about it. Yeah. They ain't taking this thing seriously. Let's put context around it. Yeah. So let's put some context around it. Raven, how long ago was this?
This was nine years ago now.
9 years ago.
9 years ago. We are 29. We got married at 20. So yeah.
It's happened like around the time we were turning 21, shortly after we hit 21, somewhere around that time frame.
So again, just like the other couples before this, when the man were cheating, it happened at 20 to 21. So when you're young, you're 20 to 21, you're young, you're silly, you're stupid, you're naive, you're very, very young at those points, right? And again, if I'm gonna use that same measuring stick for them that they're very young, then I've got to use the same measuring stick for the pastor and his wife, right? Now, I didn't give no grace to the pastor and his wife when he was cheating for 5 years. You know what I'm saying to you? I didn't give no grace to the pastor and his wife, because when he cheated on her for 5 years, he was 19 to 24, 23, right? When he was doing all that cheating on his wife at the time for 5 years, I didn't give him no grace. I called it for what it was. I didn't condemn him. I just said that we called it for what it was. I don't care if she was 20 or 21. We're still going to call it for what it was. She cheated. It is what it is. You know what I'm saying to you? Yeah, you were young. It is. We were all stupid and naive, and I've cheated like 2021. So we're not going to, no one's going to kill you or anything like that. Do you know what I mean? The reality of the situation is the consequences are still the same. You feel what I'm saying to you? Right? But yeah, I understand. They were young, and that's why probably also that it hits different, because they just started their process of dating and their process of, well, being married at the time as well, you know? But they're now 20, they were now 30 something.
A long time.
So people look at y'all relationship now and see it thriving, and they wonder, how did y'all get here? We're gonna go take some steps back. Y'all were 20 years old. You met her at what age?
We met originally the first time we met at, I was 17. I think she had just hit 17 as well. So yeah. So we were 17 when we first met.
Well, you started smiling when you said that. So what happened? So we're gonna unpack this. So y'all were you said you were working at the mall?
Yeah, so I was working at the mall. We both were born and raised in Las Vegas. So I was working at the mall at a Finish Line shoe store. And so her cousin, her best friend walked past the store. We kind of like shared eyes or whatever. And then next thing I know, her cousin came running back in the store. I was like, oh, my cousin want to talk to you. So she gave me her number. And so we started talking for a little bit. Around that time, I was getting ready to leave for school. And so I'm not gonna lie, my thought process was, I'm a young guy that's about to go play college ball.
I ain't got time to be locked up in a relationship.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah, I was like, I'm gonna go out there and be single. And so ended up going out to school. Probably like a month into school, I got into another relationship. She saw it and heard about it. We had like a year and a half of just no contact at all.
Yeah.
Like she was kind of mad at me, and so we kind of went our separate
Also,
ways.
what happened when you went to college? You told her that you were.
So at 17 is when they first met. They didn't get married then. They got married. They got together at 17. Again, very, very young. He was in college and he's going college ball and everything like that as well. That's original. And what I love about them is that as they're telling a story, they're smiling. Okay, all right. I love the fact that the fact that they are smiling and still engaged the way they are. They're holding each other's hands. I mean, it does feel like she's clinging on to him a little bit, but I do love the fact that they have that good energy still. And it may be because they're still young. They're like in their 30s now, right? As they're telling the story, pretty much. And so they have a different perspective. But it's just like, it's nice to see that energy where other couples who've seen them, they're literally sitting on the other side of the couch. So it's nice to see this as well, taking that into account, that they seem to be so together as well at that point.
And trying to be in a relationship.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And how'd you feel hearing that, Raven?
It was devastating because I knew I wanted to be with him.
You knew that.
Yeah, I knew that for sure.
So that wasn't no puppy love type thing.
No, I knew I wanted to be with Keith.
How could you be so sure about that at what, 17, 18 years old?
He treated me differently than any other guy that I had ever dated. He was kind to me. Ooh, I know I said I wasn't gonna cry. He was so sweet to me, and he still is. He took me out on dates, and he represented someone that I always I never had that with my dad. So for him to display that love that I was looking for really made me attached to him. And then too, my family, the very first time he met my family, they loved him. So I knew that I wanted to be with him
forever.
Yes.
So Raven, as you begin.
So that's interesting. So from an onset for her, she knew that he was the one. Okay. From the very onset, she knew he was the one. And I think because of the way that he treated her, the way that he spent time with her, the way that he honored her, because obviously, and she didn't go very deep. She didn't go very deep in this whole overall interview, but there was some aspects of when it came to obviously her household, what she had experienced. And I knew it was coming because of the way that she was dealing with the situation. I was like, okay, I know where this is going to, but we'll get there in a second or two.
And to talk about old Keith over there, you got teary-eyed. What put words behind those tears? Why talking about him and his kindness? Why is it bringing tears to your eyes?
I love him. Because he's literally, not to get biblical, but he really is a representation of Jesus. Literally, it was through him that I was even able to really see the love that God has for me, being that I did something so foul, so wrong. I think when you get when you get saved, or when you say you believe in God, or, we're like, oh, I love God. I don't think you really get it until it's something that when you do something wrong, and then you see that love hasn't changed. They're still the same. It's powerful. So I honor him. I respect him. I love him. That's where it comes from.
So do you feel that the feeling that you
Well, we're glad she respects him, because boy, it might be difficult for some people. I think also someone said she's gonna cheat again. I think what was interesting about this, what I love about, again, I'm gonna say the body language is and someone said it, how in tune he is, but also like just how he is always.
have from him now?
Hold on, let me just go back
Say
over
you
so you can
believe
see it. How he pays attention to what she's saying. And I say that because we've watched other couples and it's like they're not even paying attention, let's be honest, right? But you can see how he's, he keeps his eyes trained on her. Hopefully it's not because she's going to run away, but reality of the situation, I think he's in tune. He's listening. He's participating. He's being aware. He's really hearing her out. You know what I'm saying to you? And that's a beautiful thing. Okay. All right. As well. So it is interesting to see that. Now, Jay another round be dropping these bars, and I don't want to say them, but she be, you be calling me out a little bit another round. And you know what? I'm gonna have to hold myself accountable, because you're right. I don't want to say it, but and not be authentic. But you're right. I honestly believe that while she definitely felt like he offered something different, there was a lack of respect. And you know what? Let me tell you something. I've been out in these streets and I've seen it before. A lot of women talk a really good game about how a nice man is, but what they don't realize is that, especially if you've been from a very dangerous background, like if you've been in a painful background, if you've been in a background where the way you feel about a man or a husband or a father, that role, the way that you're having pain about it, there is a certain type of energy that doesn't make you feel safe. And then you feel like you have to take control, and there's a resentment that comes from that. That's number one. Number two, there's another aspect where sometimes even that this is good for you, but the reality of the situation is that you don't know how to handle all that niceness. And I'm using the word niceness on purpose. And I say that to say, because there has to be a balance when you're a man. You should be gentle in your speech, but you should also be able to let the person know, I'm not the one to play with. Like that, you know what I'm saying to you? Because the unconditional stuff, whilst I believe in unconditional to a degree, except for cheating and all that kind of stuff, you know how I said this last time, that's for Jesus. As for me, there's a condition. You become unloyal, you are no longer my safe space, my guy. Okay, so when you are nice, it's different from being good. People that are good have boundaries and are able to let you know what their wants and their needs are. There's something I happened to me last year, and I started saying this. I don't mind being the villain. I don't mind being the villain if I tell you what my wants and needs are, and you complain because I keep telling you what my wants and needs are. I'll be the villain. Here's why. Because the person that normally gets cheated on is usually the one that won't tell the person what their needs and wants are. They usually are operating in a passivity and a niceness that actually makes the other person feel like you're being too nice, and life is not too nice. And let me give you, and again, that's us as humans. It's even difficult dealing with somebody who's just loving, right? Look at the way that our relationship is with God. Even sometimes it's even difficult to go before God, because we know that God is so perfect and so loving and so caring. And so it can be even difficult, even with us of God, let alone somebody be nice. You know what I'm saying to you? We know that God is loving. It's difficult sometimes even coming to him and being vulnerable and just receiving that love that he has for us. How much more than you have an adult, a human being, a human being who is nice, not necessarily, I want to say loving, but nice. I told you that perfection sometimes exposes people for their imperfections. Now, am I saying go and be imperfect? No, but what I'm saying to you is people that are insecure tend to need some other people that are a little bit insecure too, because somebody's security sometimes can actually expose how you feel about your insecurity. You know what I'm saying to you? So that's an issue too, you know. Yes, a lot of husbands do forgive their wives. Actually, there is a lot of husbands who do that. Absolutely right. You're not lying. You're telling the truth.
In God, or we're like, oh, I love God. I don't think you really get it until it's something that when you do something wrong, and then you see that love hasn't changed. They're still the same. It's powerful. So I honor him. I respect him. I love him. That's where it comes from.
So do you feel that the feeling that you have from him now is a whole lot more powerful because of how he loves you through your worst days?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
So let's go back, because I want to unpack y'all relationship so we can get to what happened or whatnot, and how y'all overcame that, because that's beautiful. Because here it is, he went off to college. He said he didn't want a relationship.
Mhm.
He booed up now. You done found out about it, got your little heart broke.
Mhm.
And how did y'all bounce back from that?
So I was in a relationship.
How you gonna be mad then if you're in a relationship? Y'all both in a relationship.
This was years later, right?
Yeah, so like it was after I had already got into my relationship.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I think at that point when she saw that, she was kind of like, okay, well, she thought I was moving on completely, and like it was just never going to be something that would come back again. And so at that point, she had got into a relationship.
Yeah, I was in a relationship with someone who was in the military. I was actually living in Washington, and he actually had a wife, and I didn't know. I had no idea. And it's funny how this all plays out. It literally all plays out. And this is why I say, like, you reap what you sow. Even if you really don't know. Like, it could be an accident. You reap what you sow.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was in.
Well, first and foremost, as Christians, whilst I do believe in reaping what you sow, that's what grace is. Grace is that fact that we don't get what we deserve. Mercy also too, we should be getting something, but we don't get it, because again, sometimes we talk about reaping and sowing. Whilst I do believe in that, we have to be very cautious. Just because you were in a cheating situation with someone else, and somebody who lied to you about being they were lying to her, by the way, in that situation. They lied to her about being single, and they were actually married. That it doesn't mean that you were then your karma was to come back around and you would suffer the same fate in the marriage. And besides that, baby, you're the one that stepped out, so that wouldn't even be reaping what you sowed. That wouldn't even be reaping what you sowed, because you're the one that stepped out. Do you get what I'm saying to you? So it's that's not what it is. And there's something that's gonna be interesting about this as well, is a lack of accountability. A lot of people lack accountability because they don't believe that they have power to make choices. And we're gonna come to it. Bear in mind what I just said. We're gonna come to it a little bit later, because you're gonna explain this. People that end up cheating sometimes like this, or often believe, I didn't know I could hurt the other person. Some bullcrap. Like, you need to be accountable for your behavior, right? But we'll go there in a second or two.
In a relationship. I had got out of that relationship by way of finding out that this guy was married. Moved back to Vegas, and around that time that I had got out of that relationship, he actually ended up getting out of his relationship.
Yeah.
Literally the exact same time, and all of a sudden he hit me up on Twitter.
Yeah.
And
That's the only thing I wasn't blocked on. So,
Yeah.
She had you blocked, brother?
Yeah. So I'm like, man, I can't find her on Facebook. I know she still got it. And so I'm
Came
like,
up invisible like a bug.
man, I'm telling you. And that's one thing.
By the way, this is before they got married. This is when they were young kids. Okay, so what actually happened? They met at 17. He then went to college, and then he was in a relationship. She then got into a relationship. They're now coming back. So all of this is before they got married. This is all before they got married. By the way, it's all before they got married. Okay.
Thing like if I'm dedicated to finding something,
gonna find
it.
that?
I'm gonna find it. So I was like, okay,
You gonna pop up at a mama house, huh?
Right.
Mhm.
And so I reached out, and I was still in school finishing up that semester, but because of my previous relationship I was in, we were living together at that time. And so my living situation, that fell apart. I was like, okay, I'm gonna have to go back to Vegas to finish up that following semester. And so I messaged her. We ended up going on a date on Christmas of 2012 and hung out, and we were talking for that next like month or so. And then we officially got into our relationship January 25th of 2013.
So Raven, were you waiting on him when you said that?
So in 2013, they got together in a relationship. Now, this is where we have to pay attention. Okay, this is where we have attention. Okay, because we have to pay attention to the foundations, and something, this is something that even me, I'm really paying attention to. Like, I remember, and I remember I was talking to the Lord about this, and it's like, if I'm being faithful, I'm not being faithful because I have a wife. I'm being faithful because I want to be faithful to the Lord. I understand that me stepping out, not only it doesn't allow me to break generational curses. Number two, it hurts you, Christ. It hurts our relationship. I start feeling like my relationship with you is suffering. Like I'm having a whole new dimension of the way I look at sin and the way I look at things that I know are not right. I don't want to lose a connection with you. That's my key thought now. It's not just, oh, I've got a girlfriend or I've got a wife, that's why I'm not cheating. No. I don't want to lose my connection with the Lord, blood. Yeah, because every time I feel like I'm, when you feel like you're doing something, it's not really connecting with the Lord. It's like I'm losing the connection. I don't like losing the connection. I like what we have, bro. When you like what you have to protect it. You know what I mean? So I understand.
That when he went off to school, were you literally waiting on him since you believed that was going to be your husband?
I did not wait on him. No.
Okay.
No, I was so angry with him. I decided to move on myself. And then going through other relationships, it was really terrible. Honestly, like, why did you have to leave? Because you
don't put me out here with these savages out here. Look what you did to me, Keith.
Why did you? Yeah, but it's not his fault. I had deep things going on inside of me I needed to get through, and going through different people. The love that I was looking for, it was him the whole time. It was just him the whole time.
It was him the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
How can you evolve to the state of mind you openly confess your faults? Healing.
Like, it was like, okay, this is like a real deal relationship. I feel like this is somebody I can last with. And then at the same time, like I say, it was like that. You feel like as a 17-year-old, my mind is set. I can think for myself, but you got all the outside influences. And then it's like, you got family members and friends in high school, like, oh, you about to go out to such and such and so-and-so. There's going to be girls there and stuff like that. So like in my mind, I start thinking, and then especially like young at 17, I was promiscuous. I ain't gonna lie. Like, so, I'm just thinking about that. I'm thinking about living life in that sense. And so the thought of a long-term relationship in a sense scared me off. And I'm like, is this really something I want to do? Because
at that young age, I mean, it makes sense. Who want to be locked down at 17 years old, 18 years old, quote unquote, living a married life? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
It's like you want to go out and explore, and then let me choose you because you were my best choice, not the only choice.
Exactly. And then also I feel like it was kind of like the timing that it was in my life. And so had we met each other, let's say like a year and a half prior, I think my whole thought process would have been different. And the reason why I say that is because around the age of 16 going into 17, that was when I actually had lost my virginity, because prior to that I felt like, okay, I'm gonna save myself till marriage, and I had no problem with the thought process of an early marriage.
Oh yeah, so open up Pandora's box.
Exactly.
Like, I'm here now and wild out.
Right, exactly. And so like because of the timing of where we met, I had that type of mindset, and I think that also played a major part in me making that decision that ultimately hurt her and held off something that we could have got started a long time ago.
Oh, that's some good reference there, boy. That's good. That's good. They say hindsight is 20/20 for real, huh?
Definitely.
He said, shoot, if I done tasted that forbidden fruit, I was like, you know what? You cute now, but there's some more fruit out here I need to go taste.
Right, yeah. It puts your mind in a different place. Like I started to, in a sense, kind of objectify.
I was actually a mistress. So
been there, and a lot of us still there.
Yeah.
So you stalked her a little bit, found her on Twitter.
Yeah.
Slid in her Twitter DMs, and y'all started dating again. When he reached out to you, what did you think?
On Twitter?
Yeah.
I didn't want him.
At that time, you were shut down.
I was done. I was so done. I was done with men. I was done, period. Like, because I came out of a relationship that I had found out I was actually a mistress. So, yeah, I was like,
I ain't trusting none of them no more.
I wanted nothing to do with it. But then I did pray about it. And God did tell me to give him a chance.
So you was praying then? You got a prayer life back then?
Mm-hmm. I was perfectly fine being like Paul and
so be by myself.
Literally single at that point.
You were fine with that?
Yes. Yep. Until I gave him a chance.
So then how did that happen? So did you never,
So she was a praying woman. So more than likely what I'm seeing, and also maybe she's more spiritually mature than him, has maybe a deeper relationship with God than him potentially, and that's why I'm seeing maybe the leading in this instance. Because I think when I go onto her page, again, it's a gifting. It doesn't necessarily mean that he actually is. I'm just saying it could be wrong. But when I go onto her page, she's talking about Christ openly. She's talking about God and her relationship with God, and all that kind of stuff. So she may be that she has a gift of preaching, and so she may be a bit more well versed with the encountering of God and stuff. So that's maybe why I'm seeing a bit more leadership from her than I'm necessarily seeing from him. But then again, there are men like him who are very more quiet and they lead from the back. So, I don't want to make too many assumptions on that. But again, it's just how it looks. That doesn't mean actually how it actually is.
Had him blocked. So he reached out to you. He was talking to you in the DMs. You say, hey, I'd like to call you, and you unblock them or what?
On Twitter.
Yeah,
Twitter.
That's the only connection he had with you.
Yeah.
How'd y'all get on the phone?
So you texted me, right? I gave you my number.
Yeah.
We started communicating. Then we went on like a date.
On Christmas.
Yeah.
And I walked into the house, and that was my first time meeting a lot more of her extended family. So
like my grandma was there.
Exactly.
Now that's how I'm going to tell the story too. When I have to tell the story about how I met my wife, I'm going to tell it because there's definitely situations in between that are missing. When you have to turn and be like, you remember, like what you remember how I texted you? Because there's something else happened in between that. That's how I'm going to tell my story too, because I'm chatting doo-doo in between that. That there was something that happened there that we can't talk about. So, hey, do you remember that time when did I text you or give my number to you? That's such an insequential sequence of events. It doesn't even matter if he gave the number or not. Like, do you know what I mean? But the way they're telling it is making you feel like there's something else that happened in between that time. I don't know what it is, but it's giving one of those moments. You know what I'm saying to you? Which means maybe something happened. I mean, again, I'm not judging it. I'm just saying, like, when you do that whole, when you're trying to figure out how to tell the story without exposing certain parts of it, that's usually what you do. Do you know what I'm saying to you? So, yeah.
Exactly. And so,
you didn't walk right on in there. Huh?
Yeah.
I know it's like a big family gathering. I see cars. I'm like, there's a lot of people in here. And so I walk in, man. I meet grandma and everything like that, the aunts and everything that I never met prior to. So I'm like, okay. And her parents remember me. They welcomed me back in, open arms and stuff. And so we went on our date, and it was kind of just like, you got certain relationships that it just pick up like you never left. In a sense. Like, y'all talk about certain things that transpired in between, and why did this have to happen? But at the same time, it was like, okay, we picked up right where we left off in a sense.
And so at that time, you were how old? You were 19?
I was 20.
We just turned 20.
Yeah, I just turned 20 in 2012.
So y'all had a break for how many years? A year and a half?
Year and a half.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was a year and a half break. Y'all back. So y'all moved fast then. So after y'all reconnected, how long did it take y'all to get married?
So 3 months, 4 months?
No, it's about 6. So we started talking in December of 2012,
right.
and then we officially got into a relationship January 25th of 2013. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And then we got married June 22nd of 2013.
I love it.
Now, I'm not gonna shoot her for this. I'm not gonna shoot her for this. I think it's fair play, right? But old girl seems very scared. Like, as they're telling the story, she looks scared. And I said it to say because that's not how she was behaving in them videos. Right? So I'm like, hold on a minute now. Well, I'll go on for the thing. Because her energy shifted. Like, if you see her energy here on the platform versus the energy in the videos, it's very different. When she's telling the story, she's confident. When you watch them videos, she's sitting on his lap telling the story. You know what I'm saying? With great energy. Something is different. Of course, again, it might be because they went viral, and maybe because all the men's comments that came about. Remember, I want to provide a context. This video happened. This interview happens on the back of them going viral. And when I say the men were attacking her, they are attacking her. Okay, so maybe she's trying to play more coy than she's actually being, because this is a different type of energy. Like, watching her there, almost biting her lip, looking very nervous, almost like she's just allowing him to lead. Maybe I think at the time, people were probably saying, you know what, he's not leading enough. Now, Aisha, I don't want to say that, but you know what? Again, let me hold my hands up. I don't want to say it, but I mean, you saying something right now. Okay, all right? I don't want to say it, but you saying something right now. Okay, all right? You saying something right now. I don't want to say it, but you saying something right now, Ash. Okay, it's very true. When I was out here in them streets, the reasons why... One of them was actually, and it's not just being bad in bed. It's actually not being bad in bed. What it was is that these men were not paying attention in bed. So it became a very selfish act. It's not that she couldn't climax. It's the fact that he just was so selfish in bed. Now, I'm not saying that's him, by the way. I'm just saying that when I was out there in Egypt and I did some things, okay? One day I'll release that story, but it has to come correctly at the right time. The Lord has to allow me to release some of those stuff. You get what I'm saying to you? Okay, all right. The women that were stepping out of those relationships, they had all the same excuses. Niggas are selfish. Whether it's financially, whether it's emotionally, and definitely when it was sexually. Just stingy. Stingy, blood. Stingy. Now, I'm not saying that's him. We don't know. We don't know. Let me tell you this now. When my thing happened, when the betrayal came for me too, my performance weren't great either. I'm gonna be honest with you. You know, I'm gonna be real with you. You know, I have to be honest with you, and that's how I know it's true. Because when it happened to me, I wasn't stingy. I'm a person that likes to give, but old girl didn't like certain behaviors. She don't like, you know, I want to be very careful what I say. Old girl don't like, you know, the oral thing. So I couldn't even make up for it. So when at a time when the performance wasn't performing, old girl was suffering. Let's just be honest. Old girl was suffering. So when she ended up cheating on man, I can get it. I get it. You've been starved. You've been starved. You know what I'm saying to you? And I can't get mad at it, bro. You've been starved, bro. And so I had to hold my hands up accountable. That's probably why I went on a little spree, because I was like, nah, that ain't gonna happen again. I'm gonna make sure I'm on point next time, because ain't nobody gonna do it to me. You know what I'm saying to you? But that's the reality of the situation. A lot of times, man, them don't want to learn how to do things properly, blood. And do you know what I'm saying to you? So you got to learn, man. We've got to learn. Okay, we've got to learn. Women are not trying to be in relationships long term, and they ain't getting a good beating. You know what I'm saying to you? Like, it doesn't make sense that you're enjoying and they're not enjoying too. I should be concerned if I come out at the end. You know what my thing is like, if I have it, and again, this is in Egypt, I'm now changed by the grace of God. When I was in Egypt, my whole emphasis was to learn. How do you like it? What do you like? How do I listen? Like, I'm saying to you, like, that's why I said, we had a live last night. Jay was on a live, right? And I said, women can't fake sex with men who pay attention. Only men who don't pay attention can a woman fake sex with. Because there are markers and different behaviors that go into doing what we do. But when men don't pay attention, right, this actually is what ends up happening. Right? There is verbal communication. Let me tell you something now. If you're thinking, let me be very clear. I'm going to give you some markers here. One of the markers is this, right? If the sex is not hitting, that woman, she might one or two times be like, oh yeah, the sex is amazing, but she'll never really bigs it up on her own. Like if the woman's really enjoying it, she gonna tell you out and like verbally, you know, I can't wait to get hit. Like, she'll tell you things. Right? She'll verbalize it. Now, let's say she's not really the verbalizer, right? Let's say she's not really a verbalizer. Okay. How you gonna know? Well, when you're in, even listen, for women, it's not just a physical act, it's the emotions that go into it too, right? That there is a connection that also takes place. So if you've really been doing your job, there's flashbacks. I'm gonna tell you the truth. There's flashbacks for them. They're little hot moments for them. Okay, they gonna mention it to you, like, you know, I remember that time. You know, they're gonna be like this. I remember that time. They're gonna have a little smile about them. Yeah, right. When you're hitting it correctly, her energy. I'm telling you, her energy shifts, bro. Yeah. So these are things that happen. But then even within the actual intercourse of what's happening. Please hear me, man, them. Okay, all right? Even within that, why are you not listening? Thank you, Jay just said it. Why are you not paying attention? I pay attention. You know, when you're on point, the breathing is usually the biggest indicator. Forget her saying, "Oh my God, you're this." Forget all that noise about her going, That's for the show. Forget about that one. That's for the show. They lied to you about that one. You watch too much pee, and that's why you think it's that. No. It's the breathing, bro. When you know you're in the right spot, the breathing changes, bro. When you know you're in the right spot, she's going to tell you, don't move. These are indicators, my guy. Right? Some people like to shake. Some people generally have, you know, an excretion that comes out. You know, why? You know what I'm saying? To depend the different things that different people have. But you know what I'm saying to you? And of course, you got to pay attention to that, right? But I'm just gonna tell you those two things there. Yeah, I'm gonna tell you those two things there, bro. At least the breathing and don't move, right? And I like to say the shake, but some girls are shaking and faking. So just gotta be careful of the shaking one. You know what I'm saying? Some girls will shake just to get you off them. Do you know what I'm saying to you? So but the breathing, you can't fake that because it takes your breath off. So the breathing changes because you're getting excited, you're getting aroused. So there's no way you can fake that. Do you know what I'm saying to you? So that's what I'm trying to tell you. Like, she ain't gonna take, oh, stay there, and it ain't really there. Yeah, I'm telling you, bro. Okay. I'm gonna tell you that, bro. So I'm saying it all to say that that's an education in itself. That's actually an education itself to pay attention what's happening to you and what's happening to them. That takes an education to also be asking your partner, do you like this? You know, the last time we had, and be open about it. Like, hey, did you actually like this last time? Do you know what I'm saying to you? Because we want, if I genuinely care about you, okay, if I genuinely care about you, okay, if I genuinely care about you, then, you know, then I'm going to be paying attention. Some of you saying that you can fake the breathing, that's how I know that you've been doing that way too much. Because if you're faking the breathing, that tells me all I need to know. You're an expert at faking. You don't need to be in that place with anybody else. You need to go and sit down and heal. Why are you faking breathing? No, you just go and sit down and heal. Go and sit down and heal. Those of you who are faking breathing, that you're saying that you can fake the breathing, go and sit down and heal. You've been doing it too long. You need to get out of that place. Go and read your Bible. You've become an expert faker. Go and read your Bible. But no, you know, but yeah, so I'm saying to you, like, you should be in tune. Now, that comes back all the way around to what we're talking about, right? That what I experienced when I was in Egypt is that a lot of women did end up cheating because there was a lack of that intimacy, or there was a lot of stinginess in the intimacy. And stinginess doesn't always mean that you're doing it on purpose. It can be a lack. Okay. All right. There can be a lack. There can be a lack of you also being attentive, and that can be stingy. You know what I'm saying to you? You know what I mean? Smile says abstaining. Listen, we're all abstaining here. Trust me, I'm in the boat with you. I'm abstaining, so don't worry. I'm in the boat with you. Okay, I'm in the boat with you. Don't worry. We're rowing together. You know what I mean? We're rowing together. I just want to educate some people. Okay, so yeah. Okay. You know what I'm saying to you? Exiled One said something too. Yeah, you're actually right. The muscles and everything, I will tell you as well. Okay. And if all men, if you love your wife, you should also be ready to receive that. Listen, this is not working for me. Why would you not want to receive that? Do you not want to be better? As a man, we should be ready to receive that. We should be ready to be open. And we can say, look, it hurts to hear it. Of course it hurts to hear it. But but then if you're telling me, that means I can change something. If you're telling me I should look at it as, no, then I can change something. Men need to handle it. You know what I'm saying to you? So tell them, because ladies, you shouldn't be starving and you should not be suffering in silence. It doesn't help anybody. You know what I'm saying to you? Just let him know. Say, hey, babe, you know, I enjoy our sex. I think we can even take it one step further. You know, everything's about how we address things. Hey, I'm enjoying sex with you. Here's how we can take it one step further. You know what I'm saying to you? Here's how we can take it one step further. You know, how about we try this? You know what I'm saying to you? And mandem should be inquisitive, bro. You know, mandem should be inquisitive about trying to learn to do more things. I was learning, bro. You know what I'm saying to you? That's something I was learning. Okay. But anyway, back to what we're saying. So that's why I say that often when women do that cheating thing, right? She didn't stay emotional. She actually went the whole way sexual. Now, of course, that's probably to do with her childhood wounds, but that's also as well, the fact of the matter is, I've said it before and I'll say it again. It is very rare. It's very rare, okay? Very rare that a man lays it down so well that this girl ends up, if she does cheat, that she's going to cheat physically. If she was going to cheat, she's going to cheat emotionally, because that's what she needs. She doesn't need sex. You know what I'm saying to you? It's very rare that I've seen that. Just me personally. I haven't heard of it. But listen, if you have, then I understand. because women are women, so they know each other. But me personally, it's very rare. If that woman does cheat on a man that hits it well, it's because she's cheating emotionally. She doesn't need a sexual aspect. So she's already covered. So again, the fact that she chose that avenue, I'm like, oh, is that because, you know what I'm saying too? So because she went all the way, she didn't just cheat emotionally, she cheated physically too. So yeah, that's that. Okay, let's go.
Why did you, at what point did you feel like this is the one then?
So when I got out of that last relationship, my first prayer that I said to God was, I'm tired of like being in pointless relationships. I want my next relationship to be my wife. And I wanted him to show me what it was that I needed in a wife. And so when I had got out of that relationship and we were just in the talking phase, like we weren't in an official relationship, and we had an agreement that, okay, like if we're not official, then we can still talk to other people in a sense. And even during that time of trying to talk to somebody else or anything like that, I was just saying, okay, like she holds all the qualities that I always was told by my dad to look for in a wife.
Okay, hold on. What were those called? You said your dad told you. See, a lot of times we don't get those conversations from dad.
Exactly.
So your dad told you what to look for in a wife?
Yeah, my dad's biggest thing was always refer back to the Bible, but at the same time, he would also try and tell me from experience, find a wife that's going to look out for me, not only in real life, but also in prayer. Find a wife that's going to look out for me and make sure that even when I'm not around, she protects my name, she protects me as a man, and somebody that I can feel like I can definitely trust with, babe, I need you to pray for me on this. I need you to be in agreement with me on this, and that she's going to be that. And so like a lot of our dates that we first had dates, I'll say, we were doing Bible study, just like over at my parents' house. I was still living at home at that time. I would either go over to her parents' house. Sometimes we'd just sit down and read the Bible. My dad was a deacon in the church that I went to. Her dad was a preacher. And so we both came.
So y'all come from.
Yeah. So it was like, okay, like now that I'm finding somebody that it's not like, okay, we just going out and then going back to their place for a nightcap.
Yeah.
I'm actually finding what I need. And, it was just like, okay, like this is a person that we actually had agreed, like, let's be celibate and let's see what this relationship really is, going to bring out of it.
I respect that. These two obviously have a Christian background with their parents and stuff. And it sounds like they both were PKs as well. So I want to just go backside just because I kind of tuned out a little bit. I can't lie to you. My brain went off somewhere, started thinking about the past. So let me tune back in. Sorry.
Dad told you. See, a lot of times we don't get those conversations from dad.
Exactly.
So your dad told you what to look for in a wife?
Yeah, my dad's biggest thing was always refer back to the Bible, but at the same time, he would also try and tell me from experience, find a wife that's going to look out for me, not only in real life, but also in prayer. Find a wife that's going to look out for me and make sure that even when I'm not around, she protects my name, she protects me as a man, and somebody that I can feel like I can definitely trust with, babe, I need you to pray for me on this. I need you to be in agreement with me on this, and that she's going to be that. And so like a lot of our dates that we first had dates, I'll say, we were doing Bible study, just like over at my parents' house. I was still living at home at that time. I would either go over to her parents' house. Sometimes we'd just sit down and read the Bible. My dad was a deacon in the church that I went to. Her dad was a preacher. And so we both came.
So y'all come from.
Okay. So now we get our first thing. Now we get our first inclinations, bro. Our first inclinations in that. You get me? I'm saying to you, this is interesting. Okay, so having a PK background, I know how difficult that can be. You know what I mean? Like, let me issue some grace to them. This can be very difficult because when you both are PKs, right, you are always having to be watched, and you're always under perfectionism. Other people watch you, church people watch you. Everyone's talking about what kind of behavior you have, and it can be very tiring at the point in time. Now, it can be very difficult to exist in that world. Okay, especially as a young individual. Some of us grew up in and we saw other PKs. We'll be out in a club and we'll see a PK child out in a club too, and we'll be like, "Wait, what are you doing here? Ain't your dad a pastor?" Like we would, even people who are in the world wouldn't give those people grace. So it is very difficult because there's always judgment, there's always eyes on them, there's always someone saying something about them, always somebody trying to dictate to them about their life. That can feel like control, and that can be very difficult. Now, especially if you are a PK, you're also watching and observing the behavior of your parents. Can they still honor you? Can they still appreciate you? Can they still uplift you as a parent? And show you the love of Christ as they do show their church, or do they show the church more love than they show you? Those are some of the difficulties that can happen. You know what I'm saying to you? That's the truth too.
Yeah. So it was like, okay, like now that I'm finding somebody that it's not like, okay, we just going out and then going back to their place for a nightcap.
Yeah.
I'm actually finding what I need. And, you know, it was just like, okay, like this is a person that we actually had agreed, like, let's be celibate and let's see what this relationship really is, you know, going to bring out of it.
That's why I got married in 6 months, huh?
Listen,
it wasn't easy. I ain't gonna say. I'll definitely be honest about that. But yeah, but that was just like, you know, we got a chance to see what the relationship truly was, what the fruit of it actually was.
And what did you find, Raven?
I'm sorry,
In that 6 months, what'd you find?
my husband, like, or
When y'all were talking in that thing, what was some aha moments that you had? His dad, you began to be the manifestation of what his father told him to seek after.
Let me tell you why she also just responded the way she did, because she's tuning out. She's trying to, she's there, but she's not there. I feel like she's tuning out. As much as the smile is there, she tuned out a little bit, just like I did a minute ago.
Truly was what the fruit of it actually was.
And what did you find, Raven?
I'm sorry,
In that 6 months, what'd you find?
my husband, like, or
When y'all were talking in that thing, what was some aha moments that you had? His dad, you began to be the.
Now the question might not be as absolutely clear, but I think she also tuned out, right? But like I just did a minute ago and I had to rewind. It happens, right? But sometimes I think in that moment she was thinking about something. Yeah, she had a flashback. Something just as he was talking, she had a flashback. Although she was smiling, it might have been a good flashback. It might not have even been a bad one. Do you know what I mean? But she had a flashback. That's why she had to be like, she answered something, but it wasn't necessarily in alignment with what he was asking, because she was looking at him, but she wasn't listening. You know, and it might be a good thing. I don't know. We don't know what was actually happening, but so that's also a thing. Yeah,
the manifestation of what his father told him to seek after. What framework did you have to go after? Did mom ever sit down and talk to you about that?
honestly, no. So he, like I said, he really, like, he represented everything that I always said I didn't want a man like my dad. He was the opposite of that. And he just displayed that. He displayed that he cared, he loved me, and he loved God. So
now let's pause it right there. What did it just tell us? We just got told that her dad was a preacher, and now we're being told that he's nothing like her dad. And that is actually a lot of trauma for a lot of young individuals. Again, given her grace, because a lot of people grow up in households where they see their dad being a pastor, a deacon, you know, an honorable member of the church, but their behavior is absolutely diabolical, or is completely opposite to the love of Christ. Okay, so the fact that she said that obviously he is completely nothing like her dad, this is also another thing that some people do as well. And the difficulty that happens is some people choose somebody who's completely different. In fact, let me mark this point. Some people choose people who are completely different to their dad, right? Or completely different to their mom. And they are fighting the image and the behaviors that their father or their mother behave like in the relationship, in their household. But they don't have another framework. All they have is, you're different from what my dad is. But they haven't got another framework in a sense of, okay, they are different, but if they have a moment, do they revert back to what my dad was then? Because that's what ends up happening for a lot of people. It's like the moment that you break train, the moment that you don't behave like, you know, what they idolized you as being, you go back to being what they thought their dad was or what their mum was, right? And the reason why I say that is because if you go forward in the relationship, if you listen, forward in a video, she speaks about how when she cheated and he found out, and then they had to try and heal, she said he just became like my dad. And I was like, see, that thing is, it's almost like you're waiting for the shoe to drop. I don't know if you really believe he's always that nice. And so the fact that you said that he went back to his dad, it will come up later on, I'll show you. I was like, okay, I think she was always waiting for that shoe to drop. And so there's always this pretense. There's always this I'm gonna be nice and I'm gonna people please, almost in a sense. But really and truly, is that really you? Now, again, going back to what I said about frameworks, can be very difficult for people because they only have the framework of their parents to kind of go by. And so him choosing to be very gentle, very meek. Some women do this when their fathers have been very instrumental in their life in terms of showing them what they don't want. And so I think when you then choose a partner, you may choose someone who is very different to your dad. You know what I'm saying to you? But you don't realize what that comes with. You're not ready for what that comes with. And I'm not putting him on a pedestal, by the way. I'm just saying you're not ready for what that comes with because you've only ever seen the mild treatment. So seeing the good treatment from that person, you don't realize how much it does, and it does a number on your internal work. Because already, if you've been mistreated as a youngster, then when you get into a good relationship, you have an orphan spirit sometimes. And it's like, I don't know if I can accept this goodness. I don't know if I can accept this love and care. I don't know if I can accept this beautiful thing, because I don't think I'm worthy of this beautiful thing. Okay. So sometimes then it becomes a hindrance, the blessing that you're having, because what you've experienced has been very negative. And so when you get a positive thing, you internalize it. And so your feeling of not being worthy of it can make you self-sabotage the relationship. And that's very difficult to deal with too, right?
So that's what it was for me.
I just felt something in the spirit. It's gonna release later. Because I done got emotional. I was thinking about Keith, but we're gonna unpack this. Okay. So here it is. So yeah, it's a I'll say this. Mm-hmm. There's a strong mandate over your life to restore what. So and I didn't really, but every time she begins, because you're susceptible to whatever it is. Exactly. You know, it may not even be infidelity. You may end up be cheating financially and hiding money on the side. And women have this ideology where they're like, I ain't gonna let my husband know all my money. I'm gonna keep a little stash in case it don't work out. Well, that's financial infidelity. Exactly. You know, so it may not show up and you just sleeping with somebody else, but you may end up having an intimate relationship with somebody emotionally. You never slept with them at all, but you having these conversations. Okay, I'm home, baby. Well, I'm about to pull up at my house or whatever, but I'll talk to you later. Exactly. Yeah. And I ain't never slept with him, but you have this whole emotional affair. This man knows everything about you and your husband, the things that are going wrong in your relationship. That's a violation. Exactly. So we're gonna talk about that. But I'm seeing something that's so powerful in what y'all represent right now. So father wounds that you dealt with. Is your father still alive?
Yes.
So you want to still be protective over that, right?
I mean, yeah, but I mean, I'm not opposed to speaking about it. I mean,
she said, I don't mind freeing the realness, brother. That man, I don't like him. No jokes. But she said, listen, I don't mind telling you guys the truth. And that's like me. I don't really mind telling the truth. There's some limits to what I will tell. But yeah, she's like, I don't mind talking about it, because it is a part of her journey. And I think that is a powerful thing. I think that the impact of her dad on her is huge. You know what I'm saying, Chu? And I think it's because there is a split. It's not just because that is her dad. I think her dad being a preacher and then doing that, I think that causes so much turmoil for kids as well, right? Especially you've got a parent who's in ministry and is all acting all nice and everything for everybody else, and probably have more time for other people's kids and showing them love, and then you might not get that same thing. Yeah, it gonna frustrate you.
So when you talk about that, what are you referencing?
So my dad he's not. My mom has always been like the provider of our family.
Ooh.
My dad.
Let's pause it right there. That's massive. That is massive. That is massive. Let's go back a little bit, baby. Let's not miss that cue right there, because that's huge information right there. You know what I'm saying to you? I won't stop it this time. I promise you. I'll let it go on.
So you want to still be protective over that, right?
I mean, yeah, but I mean, I'm not opposed to speaking about it. I mean,
so when you talk about that, what are you referencing?
So my dad he's not. My mom has always been like the provider of our family. My dad put a lot of trauma into my brother and I. Just being the fact that he represents, like, you know, the head of the house, and all the yelling and screaming and like getting in our faces and spitting and, you know, things like that. Really traumatized me. So the fact that when he would speak to me.
Well, let's pause right there, because I think that's enough to just tell you straight away what kind of environment she grew up in. And I before she even said it, I kind of knew. If you know anything about attachment styles, this is definitely in alignment with fearful avoidant. This is definitely in alignment with fearful avoidant. If I was to say any particular attachment style, it would be fearful avoidant, because what she just described there is a fearful environment. Right? What she just explained there is a fearful environment. And so she's chosen someone who's completely different to that. And that's actually one of the reasons why I was saying about him being nice, is because you go the complete opposite end, because your dad was like this. He's like the terrible monster. And then you need to choose someone who completely doesn't send your nervous system. This is the way that her mind thought about it. I need to choose somebody who's completely different, who doesn't trigger my warning system. See, anybody who had a little bit more assertiveness, a bit more control, a bit more leadership, she might have been triggered. So she chose, and this is my perspective, by the way, it's my opinion. It doesn't mean it's the truth. It's my opinion. So I'm not going to say anything. What that ends up doing is that you can end up choosing someone who's completely different to that, who doesn't trigger your nervous system to kick off. And so they are more passive in their approach. And because you have more control in the relationship, you now suddenly feel safe. The problem is, like I said, with women do want to feel safe. And after a while, that control, while it works, it doesn't make you feel safe in the long run, because it's like running over a bridge without no barriers. And instead of actually choosing someone who has, I don't want to say someone because he can still be that person, instead of choosing someone who has a bit more boundaries, who's a bit more stronger, whose voice is more solid, somebody who knows exactly where they're going and what they're trying to do, you don't choose that person. You choose somebody who, you know, there's going to be some collaboration, which is cool. There's something wrong with that. Collaboration is important in relationships, but you choose somebody who may not be, someone said it, yeah, it might be a bit more easier with a pushover, because that's going to make you feel safe. Because anybody who has any characteristic that's like your father is going to trigger you. And that's the work that needs to be done. But again, she was 17, he was 17, they were young, and I totally understand it. We're just explaining what happened. And I think that's a massive thing, right? So we can see all the pain right here, right now, and how it's affected her. And you know what? She probably needed someone like him because he was willing to be empathetic and caring enough to give her the grace and the space to expand. Problem is, expansion also still needs boundaries. It needs boundaries.
I have never cried about this like this, like never. But for some reason, I believe the Holy Spirit is moving.
Yep.
Now let's pause it right there. The fact that she tells us that she's never cried on this is a big issue. I'm going to tell you the truth. It's a massive issue. Now, man, them don't usually cry, so I know if a man said that to me, I wouldn't say anything. But women tend to get emotional about these situations. Now, the reason why she probably never cried about it and she cried on his couch is because she never faced it. You know what I mean? Like sometimes people, what we call is that, and it's not just fearful avoidance in general, tend to bulldoze over their trauma, right? Avoidance tend to bulldoze over their trauma. So they will tell you, oh, my dad was abusive, my dad was this, my dad was that, my mom was this, my mom was that, right? It's another day, isn't it? At the end of the day, it's what I experienced. Yeah, I was a kid. You know what I'm saying to you? I was a kid. That's why the choice I made. Yeah, I had to grow past it. And it's almost like very nonchalant. It's like they just go past it almost in a sense. Do you get what I'm saying to you? It is what it is, right? And that attitude tells us there's a lack of concern for the emotional factors of what you faced in those experiences. And that was the way that you learn how to survive. So now we're sitting on the couch. How is it that we are, 10 years into your marriage, and it's the first time you've cried about this? By the way, I'm not judging her for it. I'm merely stating something that's coming up. It's if you now sit on the couch and now you first time you cry, now either you lying to us or you telling the truth, right? And if you're telling us the truth, then it means that more than likely probably never faced it, never stood up to it, never looked at it, never actually fully faced actually what you're dealing with.
But whenever he would speak to me, it was so gentle. He's always calling me beautiful, even today. So he was never consistent with like a lot of the nice gestures or affirmations or anything like that. He was just never consistent with it. And then he would speak to me. It was so gentle. He's always calling me beautiful, even today. Even after the infidelity, he was calling me beautiful. He was opening my door. I didn't deserve that, but he did. My dad never opened the door for me. He did things for me that I never, I mean, I would see my dad do certain things like with my mom, but then it would come to a stop. So he was never consistent with like a lot of the nice gestures or affirmations or anything like that. he was just never consistent with it. And then he would turn around and he would start yelling and screaming, they'd argue, he's prideful, all of this stuff that I absolutely hated.
Now let's pause it right here. We need to go backwards slightly. Okay, sorry about that, but I pressed the wrong button, by the way. I didn't get taken out. I pressed the wrong button. Now imagine that she just told us that her dad never even opened the door for her, bro. Imagine that. Imagine that. You know what I'm saying to you? Now I'm gonna break this. I'm slowing this part down because this is really important, because this is usually to do with attachment issues, right? And so this is something I've learned. If you're gonna date someone, and again, he was young, so he would have never known this, right? If you're gonna date someone like this, you actually have to father them. And this is not saying that you shouldn't. I'm telling you what you're gonna have to do. If you date someone like this, you have to father them. You can't be their equal. Sorry to say. If you date women like this, you have to father them, because they need refathering, because they never had it. And that's just a real thing. And so what ends up happening is anybody they consider to be a co-equal, they're going to end up probably disrespecting. Because that particular person, right, that particular man is no higher than they are. And so they will actually end up sabotaging a lot of those relationships where the person seems to be a co-equal. Now, of course, they're the same age, and probably he's not that further along than her. They're probably at the same level when they were young. You know what I'm saying to you? So the way it would have worked is if somebody fathered her. And so when they don't father you, right, it's like a rejection all over again. And so you've got this person who's on the same level as you, and it's like, I'm not learning, I'm not growing, I can't look up to something, I don't feel safe. And really, it's just a trauma. But that's unfortunately what it is. And it's like, so if you are dealing with someone like that, you have to father them, which becomes very difficult, because old boy is going to tell us stuff about what he went through. He's about to tell us what he went through. And thank you for saying that, true love. Now, the reason why I can tell you that is because the kind of women I've dealt with. And I don't like being a father. I didn't like being a father to people. You understand what I'm saying to you? I didn't like that dynamic. But every woman I kept encountering had the same dynamic. And I didn't like that dynamic because I knew I wasn't ready for it yet. But the reality situation is you are going to pay. The reality situation is that some people have got certain trauma. You have to be ready to play father. And that does not mean you mistreat them or mishandle them. It means in the way that you take authority in certain situations, and the way that you deal with certain things, and the way that you're able to spot certain things, the way that your wisdom has to lead you. Now that is tough, because how do you just know that? At 17, you wouldn't know that, right? That's something that if your parents you're cool with will tell you. My parents didn't necessarily tell me that. Do you get what I'm saying to you? So I'm not going to try and put it on anybody like, oh my God, like, no, but like, it's something that your parents will be like, okay, son, I see you like her, but we're seeing her. And I'm going to tell you something. When parents really love their children and they have a good relationship, even when it's not too great, parents tend to have a good eye of seeing further than you can see. And it's kind of interesting how parents have this gift of seeing further than you are. Like, you may not see it, but your parents will go, no, we can see something's up. And you're like, wait, how did you see it? But it's just because of experience. Experience becomes this eagle eye where you can see things from a different perspective, and you see things long term, right? And so, because obviously the beef, and I'm explaining this because they had a beef with the family. The family had a beef with her. That's what pushed him more to go married. Like, it is so interesting. So in that instance, it can be true. It can be difficult for some men to play the father role, but the reality of the situation is it's either natural or it's not natural for you. You know what I mean? Like, it's either natural or it's not natural. Yeah. Someone's kindness is crazy.
But then it would come to a stop. So he was never consistent with like a lot of the nice gestures or affirmations or anything like that. He was just never consistent with it. And then he would turn around and he would start yelling and screaming. They'd argue. He's prideful. All of this stuff
Now pause it right there. What she just said. Her dad was, he was never consistent. He was never consistent with the kindness and the gestures. Okay. This is really important. Okay. because anybody who's an FA, this is really important for them. Anybody who's a fearful avoidant, this is really important. What she witnessed is inconsistency, number one. Number two, what she witnessed is somebody doing this niceness and then falling away. So for the fearful avoidant always has a fear that when will the shoe drop? When will you become the big bag monster? Because what they witness in their childhood is somebody going, I'm so nice, I'm so comforting, and then they become the big bad monster. And so they always fear that they're going to be hurt by the person in front of them. In fact, fearful avoidants believe that love almost equals pain. And so in some instance, for them, the way that they see the relationship, or where she might have seen the relationship, she just told us her dad was Jekyll and Hyde. Her dad was literally Jekyll and Hyde. The dad was at one point so nice, but then he's not doing it consistently, and then he becomes this monster where he's like in your face, spitting in your face, getting into your face, being angry. He's no longer comforting, which is actually the literal breakdown of situations that a fearful avoidance grow up in. Right? So it's really important that this is probably what happened in the relationship, that she's waiting for the shoe to drop, and maybe the shoe dropped, and you know how she dealt with it. But let's play a little bit more.
Absolutely hated. So like I said, seeing him it was completely different. Even after the infidelity, he just was amazing.
Keith.
Yes.
So dad told you certain things to look for in a wife. You saw that no Raven over here. And how did you propose to her?
All right, so this is where I know, like, it definitely wasn't romantic at all.
No, it wasn't.
It was more so one of those things. You know,
it wasn't like Baby Boy, where Tyrese said, "I love you. You probably gonna be my wife." It wasn't like that, was it?
No, it wasn't that bad, but it definitely wasn't good either. So it was like,
it was good. It was just.
I actually wish that the terrorist did not shift this. I really wish he did not shift it. I know and it's not necessarily a bad thing. I just wish he didn't shift it, because we were getting somewhere. We were getting somewhere so deep, it was going to reveal the shape of why this relationship is the way it is. But of course, you know, their relationship is not our entertainment, but it would have been for our education, because where she was, he had her so vulnerable in that space, and she was going to now expose really what was happening. I wish he never shifted it. We really needed to go a little bit more deeper, because I think that's the first time old girl's really gone that deep in the first place. That's probably the first time she's ever gone that deep. For her to start revealing some of the things that she experienced. And I get it, he probably wanted to cover the father. That's not me. You know, that's why I said that I'm glad they went on their platform, because had she started telling that story, I would have gone deeper. I'd have said, sis, go even deeper, because we need to understand this thing. Because we really need to understand why you are in the place that you're in. And just as she was giving us the keys to the kingdom of why she was in where she was, that is where we needed her to be, because then we can really fully grasp why you are there. That's my only kind of, like, I have to say, complaint against, or let me say criticism of my boy Latirius. I have to, you know what I mean? I'm gonna keep it real. We all got our own skill sets, you know what I'm saying to you? So for me personally, because I'm invested in healing, wanting to help couples heal and learn and grow, this here was that key moment where if you just pushed it out a little bit more, blood, it would have exposed something for her. I think she needed to hear, because I don't think she's even gone through it yet. I know they healed from the cheating, but I don't know if they've gone through it yet. I don't think they've gone through it yet. There's something deeper to go there. You know what I mean? It's a shame.
It's not like,
it wasn't the typical like down on the knee type thing. It was one of those things where one day we was together for our Bible study, and I had been praying about it, like, just like, God, is this my wife? Like, I know the prayer that I told you, but like, is she the one? And I felt just like confirmation in my heart, just like, this is the one for you. And so I told her, I was like, you know, I've been praying on it, and this is the prayer that I said when I got out the last relationship. And you know, I feel like God has given me that confirmation in my heart and in my spirit that you are the one. So like, would you want to go down to the courthouse and get married? So and so that was how that went.
And what you say? Yeah, you say yeah.
Yeah, it was.
Now, if you listen to the story, it's going to get deeper, they go to the courthouse, which is not a problem. They're young. They're like 18. So they're young. This is normal. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I get it. But there's another aspect that's going to come in now. Their parents and how they behaved, which is really important. Just wanted to highlight that for you guys.
It's confirmation for me too, because
And
I
y'all
was
just-
thinking the same thing.
And y'all just went. How long did y'all wait to just go down there to the courthouse?
It probably took us about a month to do it, and more so because we wanted to talk to our families.
I was about to ask you, did you
Yeah.
at least go ask her dad for his blessing?
I
Yeah.
actually did talk to
Okay.
their parents prior to, yeah. So
Yeah, that is what really kind of led to a lot of like discord between us,
Yeah.
because my family was very accepting of it because my parents got married really fast.
right,
So they were just like, yeah, like go ahead.
exactly.
But then
My parents were different.
Too young. Y'all too young for this.
More so, it wasn't even the age. It was like on my dad's side, and even what my mom would say as well was that we want y'all to be financially stable.
Oh,
We
so it's
want
about the
y'all-
money.
Now, can I be honest with you? Something else happened. I know they said about the finances. They saw something. I'm going to be real with you. They saw something. They saw something. Because, look, I mean, listen, of course, the finances are a massive thing. I think they thought that he might be too young and too immature. Yeah, I think they thought he was too young, too immature, and this girl that's coming is too fast. You know what I mean? And remember what I said to you guys, that I'm not going to deny that God spoke to him. Hear me out what I'm saying to you. I am not going to deny that God spoke to him. What I'm telling you is there is always a process to the promise. So sometimes, and this is something I don't listen, me and my dad sometimes don't agree all the time. Let me be honest with you, me and my dad don't always agree. But the one thing that I've clocked is that if I'm going to get married, I will bring a girl to him before I'll get married. Beforehand, when I was younger, I used to hate it. I'd be like, no, I don't want to do it because he's annoying. I don't like certain things that he says, blah, blah, blah. Now I'll be like, even if we're disagreeing, I'm going to bring that woman to you. Why? Because I've learned that he has. And again, if you don't have good parents, if you have parents, I know what I'm saying is, if your parents are absolutely trash, yeah, maybe probably just leave them out of it. You know what I'm saying to you? They're completely trash and they are mean, ugly people, narcissists. Then leave them where they are. But if you've got some decent parents, right, and that they don't always get it right, and maybe you're not always in tune with them, you're not always talking to them, we hear it, but they got some, they've got some wisdom. I call that third-party verification. Sometimes it is not about no, it's about wait. Okay? Sometimes it's not about no, it's about wait. And the only reason I can say that is because the way that God has dealt with me in the past 2 years has been that it's not always no. We always assume that it's no. No, he didn't say no. He said wait. But the wait feels like no. So in this situation where the parents are telling him, I wonder if they said no or they said wait. And maybe he was rushing it a little bit, right? And of course, he's young. He's like, blood, I don't want to. My hormones are raging. You know, like there's a lot going on. Yeah. And maybe they saw some of this because the money thing doesn't really make the money thing. They're young. Where's it going to get money from? It doesn't even make sense. What has money got to do with them? They are 18, 19, going on 20. Sorry, they're 20 years old. Money would never come into his hands anytime sooner. He can't make money come into his hand. He's 20 years old. Do you get what I'm saying to you? So when would we need you to be more financially stable? How? At what point? They're already in a relationship. So what would be more financially stable? There is no more financially stable because you're gonna have to wait years on years. Before then, he might waste her time or she might waste his time. So the money's not the issue. And if your parents are smart and they have some wisdom, which I believe that both their parents are, no, there was something else they saw. The parents saw something else and are not being, and either he knows or he's not being honest about what they saw. All right. And that was a point of contention. Do you get what I'm saying to you? Because I've dated some women and I know my dad, like I said, my dad told me, yeah, Charlie, it's up to you, but I'm looking at it and I'm not liking what I'm seeing. But you are the man and you got to do what you got to do. You know what I'm saying to you?
Yeah, because they dealt with their relationship being long term before they got together, and they dealt with a lot of financial struggles before and after, and so they really didn't want us to go through the same things. But the way that message was conveyed and the way that everything had transpired just really caused a rift, first and foremost, between them and Raven. And
okay, so he said obviously his parents had money issues. Okay, his parents had money issues, and then they were triggered, and they felt like we have to make sure that he doesn't go through the same thing. And I'm like, okay. It can be possible. That could actually be very, very true. that could also be something that is that's happening as well, right? That the parents might have been triggered and didn't convey the message very well. There are parents like that, who do those kind of things. I do think there is something. I still feel like something more. I feel like there's something more because, like I said, they might have told you to get more financially stable, but my thing is, it doesn't make a difference if they're married or not. He's going to look after her. He was going to look after her anyway. Your boy, your son. He's going to look after her. The kind of man he is. Like, he stayed underneath your roof for how long? You've seen him deal with other women. Maybe they felt like, he's going he's in college. Also, as well, he's playing football at this point as well. He hasn't got injured yet. He's playing football. So I don't know if they saw the fact that he's playing football, and maybe they thought to themselves, can he stay faithful? Because he's gonna, if he makes it. I don't know if that's sort of thing. I don't know either. So there's a few different moving components.
Also, it later bled in between us because I think as we grow up around people, it's very easy for us to be like, oh, that's just them.
Yeah.
But it's quick that we forget, like, okay, I can brush off like that because I live with it.
Yeah.
She's new to the situation. It's not gonna feel the same way, and
right,
as easily brushed off. So I wasn't I didn't give her that protection that she needed throughout that process. And that was where, like, I saw one of my first faults, not during that time, but as everything transpired, and really being able to like look at things and reflect back. Like, my dad always told me, like, it takes two people, whether it be good or whether it be bad. So you got to recognize your part and stuff.
Yeah.
Good.
And
now let's pause it. He now recognizes that at the time he could not defend her from his parents. Now that's intriguing, because that protection is important. That started the wheel. That started the wheel. That started the wheel that probably has not come back, that didn't get to come back in time, right? That starts the wheel. What's that wheel? Not being protected. Because remember, the father was also not protecting her by shouting, screaming, getting in her face. That was a lack of protection. But remember, you chose a man who was supposed to be opposite to your dad. And you chose somebody who's very passive. I want to be very careful I said the word passive, but it seems very passive. So this is what you also get with somebody who's a little bit more passive. They don't want to cause an uproar. They don't want to cause issues. They don't want to cause, they don't want to rock the boat. Okay. They don't want to cause a storm. And so, yeah, he's going to not protect you because he wants to keep the relationship between his parents and you. So whilst you were enjoying the gentle spirit, as someone said, I love that word, the gentle spirit, the meek spirit, that also filtered into the way, like I said, a lack of boundaries. Did I not tell you? Did I not tell you the lack of boundaries? Because listen, somebody who is not passive and assertive can still let their parents know, I love you guys, but there's a way you're conveying a message that you keep doing it, you're going to cause me and her to move away from you. I don't want her to feel unprotected. Now, of course, he's 20, so I'm not expecting him to be this grown. You know what I'm saying to you? At 20, I didn't even have those bars. But again, I'm telling you that at that time, he would have lacked boundaries. And more than likely, it would have continued.
So when I look back and recognize my part, I always prayed for God to send me the right wife, but I never prayed for him to prepare me as the right husband. And there was so many gaps that I had that situation actually did open my eyes to allow me to see that.
What's your dad's name?
Keith. I'm a junior.
Mm-hmm.
Keith Senior. Shout out to you, brother. Shout out to you for raising the king. And because oftentimes we always hear like men just babying their boys and letting them just get away with murder or whatnot. But he said, no, if something's going wrong, you have fault too. So it takes two of y'all. And if something ain't right, y'all two get together and work it out and fix it. So I love that. I love it when people just, and the fact that he actually told you what to look for. My dad never told me what to look for in a woman. I never had one conversation with my dad about dating, relationships, sex, just nothing. I'm just out here just figuring it out on my own. You know what I'm saying? So I'm glad that you had a father that was at least laying the foundation for you. So that's absolutely amazing. So I definitely want to shout out old Keith Senior for being the king.
And yeah, for real, shout out to Keith Jr. who taught him that, because I think I think also for him, to take accountability for that, I respect that, because it is actually two. Okay, it does take two. I'm gonna lie to you. When someone cheats on you and you want to stay, just know it takes two. Right? Like, you have to be accountable. Like I always say this, like, it doesn't matter whether you cheat or got cheated on, take some accountability. Why? Because you don't want to repeat the same mistakes again in another relationship. And the fact that he took some accountability and said that he didn't cover her, I think he's also, you know what I mean?
That he is. And so you realize that you left her uncovered in that situation. And what I heard you echoing and chiming in, how did that make you feel though, Raven?
Oh my gosh. So rejected. I like, because I had already grew up with a lot of rejection. I'm not trying to like point it back to childhood, but this is always been, it's still something that God is bringing me even today.
Why would somebody say you don't got to make an excuse?
So-
Everything therapists say, all that stuff traces back to childhood. So that's
Okay.
just what it is.
Well, that's what it was. It was rejection. I dealt with a lot of rejection, especially from my own dad. So being that him, like, he's not listening to me, he's not, you know, they're saying that it's financially, but is it really? You know, I'm getting a lot.
Come and see. We were right. You know what? I even forgot about this point because I was paying attention to other parts. Come and see. We all thought the exact same thing. There we go. They're saying it's a money thing, but is it really? She had the same thought we all had, right? Because it don't make sense. Now, she dealt with a lot of rejection in her childhood with her father, and then she's feeling like she's been rejected by his parents. And then he's not covering her. So it's exasperated and it's playing a detrimental role in the emotional safety in this relationship. Now, is he at fault for her cheating? You got to take accountability for your cheating. I'm only saying that when someone does it to you, that when you are in a relationship, you're going to have to take some accountability. There was something that you weren't doing either. More than likely, there was something you weren't doing, or there's something you can do better. Right? There's something you can do better. And I know a lot of people don't like that. Okay, of course, if you're a serial cheater, then yeah, baby, listen, just get out of that relationship. Nobody says stay in that relationship. But when someone cheats like this, like there are usually some issues. Like the other person is wanting from the other person, right? So it's important to be able to also be ready to listen and hear what you can change or what you can do differently, But she just exposed it right there. And what we spoke about, which is specifically, this is to do with the fact that when it comes to the protection piece, she never had it, and then she's getting rejected from his parents, and now she's asking the question, is it really money? Because that's what we all said, right? We all said, is it really money?
Not listening to me, he's not, they're saying that it's financially, but is it really? I'm getting a lot of nasty attitudes from like his mom and things like that, his family. So for me, it wasn't that, and it was hard for me to accept that it was until after, literally like years later. But it was horrible, because once we did go ahead and we decided to just move forward with the wedding or getting married, because we got married at a little chapel,
yeah.
they never showed up. And I think that hurt me more than it hurt him, because he knew how.
Damn. Now, let me tell you something I noticed. Between him and Raven's, and this is partly because of trauma, Raven will tell you the truth. One thing I have to rate Raven for is, even if it's difficult, she gonna tell you the truth. I don't know the same thing about Keith. I think Keith likes to protect emotions and feelings, and I think this is where they're gonna have issues. Because even with his mom, she was like, yeah, your mom's actually was nasty. Like, Keith didn't even say that. Right? Keith didn't even say that. He just said, oh, like, my family weren't really getting on with her. No, Keith. Your mom was being a nasty woman. Okay? Was not showing the fruits of Christ. All right? And she just came out and was like, yeah, he was being nasty. Right? Whereas he's adding he's adding that sugar. He's kind of glossing over it a little bit. And I think that's where the issues start. And this is why I said about men who are paying attention. Like, I can't gloss over certain things. I can't do it. I just can't. Like, I can't gloss over it. So I will be a villain, and I don't mind being a villain, because a villain, I tell you this now, if you are a man, you are going to be a villain in your relationship a couple of times. So long as you're not a monster, but you are a villain, you should be able to okay with that. Because there are going to be times where you have to say, this is not it. There are going to be times where you say, we can't do this. And not sugarcoat it and be like, well, what if we did? No, we can't. We actually can't go that way. Can't go left. If you go left, this will bring destruction to the rest for both of us. This is actually detrimental for both of us. This mistake you're about to make actually affects the whole family. This is not a mistake that's going to affect just you. You know what I'm saying to you? So it's important that there are times where you might be a villain for somebody. And it's okay. As a wife, there are times where you're going to be a villain towards me, because you're going to say, babe, I can't lie to you. I know you're the leader, but I've got to tell you this thing. It won't work out that way. Right? And hey, I might not listen, but at least you told me. Because when it goes wrong, I'm like, right, my wife told me. Let me shut my mouth next time. She's absolutely right. She knows what she's talking about. I'm not going to speak again. Right? Honesty is such a powerful thing. And if you hide your honesty from people, I promise you, it doesn't end well for you in relationships.
They were. And, he's just like you said, that's just how they are. I understand that it's a financial issue, but for me, it's like, you're gaining a new daughter. I'm expecting
that gotta have that have to have hurt you.
Now look what's happening here. I want you to watch your body language, because this is where they've been in sync a long time, but you're gonna see a little bit of this sinking a little bit. Just a little bit of this sinking, because our boy is hearing about his family, and I don't know if he's ever stood up to his family before. Okay. I don't think he's ever stood up to his family before.
It was hard for me to accept that it was until after, literally like years later. But it was horrible, because once we did go ahead and we decided to just move forward with the wedding or getting married, because we got married at a little chapel,
yeah.
They never showed up. And I think that hurt me more than it hurt him, because he knew how they were. And, he's just like you said, that's just how they are. I understand that it's a financial issue, but for me, it's like, you're gaining a new daughter. I'm expecting
that gotta have that have.
It's interesting, because at this point, if you watch his eyes, they're actually averted down. At this point, he's looking down. He's not looking. Beforehand, he normally looks at her, right? But if you notice, before that point, he's like, a lot of times he's always looking at her when he's talking. But in this instance, when she starts talking,
go ahead and we decided to just move forward with the wedding or getting married, because we got married at a little chapel.
Yeah.
They never showed up, and I think that hurt me more than it hurt him, because he knew how they were. And, he's just like you said, that's just how they are. I understand that it's a financial issue, but for me, it's like, you're gaining a new daughter. I'm expecting
that gotta have that have to have hurt you.
Yeah, it definitely did.
So she definitely didn't believe it was a money thing. Okay. She definitely knew it wasn't a money thing. Yeah, she knew it wasn't a money thing. And because it didn't make sense, because they are only 20. Where are they going to get more money from? I wonder if Keith was sugarcoating what was happening, bro. I wonder if Keith was trying to protect her by not telling her the truth about what her parents said. Parents done said we don't like her. It can't be a money thing, because it never turned up blood. They don't like her blood. They did not like her 1 inch. And you weren't being honest. You told them the same lie and said, babe, now it's a money thing. And she knew it was a lie. And one thing about FAs, I'm going to tell you the truth right now. One thing about FAs, fearful avoidance, they do not like liars. Look, one people you can't lie to is FAs. Everybody else, lie to them. They'll get over it. But fearful avoidance, once they find out you're lying about something, oh, damn. That just sends them into, okay, I can never trust you again, right? Because they're now expecting you to do some betrayal. That's their next step is, you're going to betray me. But I think he wasn't honest about what the parents really thought about. Because if it was a money thing, why did they turn up to the wedding? Why did they not turn up to the wedding? If it was just about money, that they needed more money and they wanted them to be financially stable, why are your parents not turning up to the wedding? And why is it that he knows that is how they are? That's just how they are. Why is he so numb to that? That's a nonchalant behavior to that, which means they've been doing a lot more stuff than this. So definitely what he saw as a PK, yeah, there are probably some differences in the way they behave as parents. Definitely. This is not giving somebody who's fine-tuned. So he saw some things with his parents, and the behavior as PKs, as pastors' kids, pastors, whatever, was different to them as actual parents. There was a lack of something. Doesn't mean they were abusive or anything. It just means there was a lack of something, right? There was a lack of something. And so that then feeds into the way he's so nonchalant, like, oh, that's just how they are. That's just how they are? That's just how they are? They're going to be mean and nasty to your wife, and then they're going to be, they're not going to turn up to the wedding? That's just how they are? No.
For me,
it's crazy. My dad and mom turned up to both my brother's wedding and my sister's graduation. Let's not play that game.
I didn't show emotion either, though.
Yeah, so I couldn't tell if that
yeah,
that would have to hurt. It's like your parents don't show up.
Yeah, and so for me, it was the only emotions I showed. I was either extremely happy or you're gonna say extremely angry. And I didn't have any in between. I had to
between, yeah.
learn that over time.
He's
And
still
so-
learning.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
Well, let's pause it right there. We got a problem. We got a problem right there. Now, the brother said, I only knew anger and happiness. That tells us he lacks an emotional range. Usually that comes with people that are dismissive. By the way, dismissive avoidance tend to date fearful avoidance like as a plague. Okay, I'm going to be honest with you. Fearful avoidance literally oftentimes date people who are dismissive avoidance. Dismissive avoidance tend to date fearful avoidance. Why? Because both of them are low maintenance when it comes to relationships. Dismissive avoidance enjoy the fact that fearful avoidance are tentative but give them space at the beginning. And fearful avoidance love the fact that DAs give them the space but don't trap them in a relationship at the very beginning. Okay? And both of them have got a mask on. And eventually when a mask drops, the needs of each individual person, if not expressed, feel like they're not being needed, they're not being catered for. For the dismissive avoidant, they feel like they're being rejected, or they feel like they're being asked of things, but they're not being told what it is. Because the fearful avoidant oftentimes expects you to know, because they are also very hypervigilant, right? And so the fearful avoidant doesn't tell you how they feel. The dismissive avoidant gets called out for it, or the fearful avoidant gets angry, like her father. We're gonna come there, angry like her father, and then you only find out her actual needs when she got angry, not necessarily when she's calm. And that triggers the dismissive avoidant into a shutdown, because now the dismissive avoidant is like, hold on a minute, what's going on? You never told me. Okay, you never told me this is what your emotions. You never told me this is what you were going through, and now you're telling me when you're angry. So now it feels like it's emotionally volatile for the DA. But here's why the DA also affects the FA. The dismissive avoidant also affects the fearful avoidant, because sometimes the dismissive avoidant is just that dismissive, right? And they have to be told what the actual issue is. And for the fearful avoidant, it's like, okay, but you're ruining the fantasy. By you not learning me, by you not spending time to understand me, by you not kind of like spending time and studying me, you're making it harder for me. And it feels like you don't really care about me, you don't really love me, you don't cover me, you don't appreciate me, you don't want me, you don't desire me, right? So the two of them get triggered. And remember, the fearful avoidant also has an anxious side of them. So there are times where the fearful avoidant flickers between the avoidance and the anxious side. But that triggers the dismissive avoidant, because it's like, why are you doing up and down? I like consistency. And when you're inconsistent, it affects me. So the dismissive avoidant gets dysregulated, and then they're like, I'm going to pull away now. And until you get yourself together, and pull away. But then that triggers the fearful avoidance anxious side. So the fearful avoidant then starts to chase the dismissive avoidant, like, I love you, I care about you, which at first makes the dismissive avoidant feel good, but after a while, they feel like they're being smothered. The fearful avoidant then fears that, okay, he feels smothered, he might not, and I'm doing too much, now goes back into avoidance. It just becomes a very nasty cycle until somebody decides they are going to take care and say, I am going to not fold and go back into the cycle. Okay. All right. Now she made a comment, and I think we know something here happened, right? Listen to this.
For me, I didn't show emotion either, though.
Yeah. So I couldn't tell if that
Yeah,
did.
That would have to hurt. It's like your parents don't show up.
Yeah. And so, like, for me, it was the only emotions I showed, I was either extremely happy or you're gonna say extremely angry. And I didn't have any in between. I had to learn that over time.
He's still learning.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
she had to cut herself off because she knew what she was gonna say. He's still. One thing about fearful avoidance, they got a little bit of a sharp mouth. That's one thing about the fearful avoidance. They're going to tell you the truth somehow, some way. Okay, they got a little bit of a sharp mouth. So he's still learning. Oh, let me hold my lip. I done told us I wasn't gonna do that no more. But that he's still learning means that he's still struggling with being able to be emotionally vulnerable and open. And of course, after the cheating, like you're trying to make it like it was, after the cheating, that would have made it even more. Okay, even more now. Like he would have shut down even more. So, but and here's the thing, because fearful avoidants are constantly in a state of trying to prove that they're worthy after the cheating, here's what I'm afraid of. If she doesn't do the work, she might chase him for 7 years because she's like, okay, I caused him to shut down where he's not opening up anymore. This is my fault. After about a few years, whenever it cracks, because it will crack, it cracks if you don't heal, right? After it cracks, she goes, I don't care anymore. And that's actually how she cheated the first time. She gonna cheat again if she doesn't heal that thing. Listen, you can talk about Jesus all you want. Talk about Jesus Christ all you want. But what you have to understand is when God gives you blessings, you have to learn how to maintain it. That requires us to still be growing. So it don't matter how much Jesus and Holy Spirit you got, because we've seen people who have the Holy Spirit and had God in them do wicked things. It is just what it is. It's human beings. So if you don't heal those parts of you, it's gonna come up again. So when she said obviously that he's still being slightly with emotions, right? And obviously for her, I'm hoping that obviously for her that she's also learning to kind of see where her own behavior is also affecting a relationship. Otherwise, this is gonna happen again. You know what I mean? Like, otherwise it's gonna happen again. I don't want it to happen again. You get what I'm saying to you? I don't want it to happen again. I'm just saying I don't want it to happen again. So, you know what I mean? I'm not saying anything's, you know, anything's gonna be definitely happen. I'm talking about in general as a purpose.
I'm either hot or cold, and so that's something that I really had to like deal with, and it was more so I would deal with it behind closed doors.
Yeah.
Like I just never been a person that like to tell my emotions just because of the fact that I don't feel like somebody else should have to deal with what I'm dealing with. Like, let me deal with it, and I'll tell you how I dealt with it later on. Like,
And that's a classic dismissive avoidant response, right? Which is, I don't want other people to deal with what I'm dealing with, right? Okay. I don't want other people to deal with what I'm dealing with, which is a classic dismissive response, which actually feels like and this is where it triggers the fearful avoidant. The dismissive avoidant feeling like he doesn't want to let other people, okay, all right, have his burden is going to force the fearful avoidant to feel like they're being shut out. Because part of I don't want you to be burdened is also not me telling you what my needs are. And so the fearful avoidance, like, you're not opening up to me. You're not being emotional. And one of the things about fearful avoidance is they really cherish deep connection with their partner. Now, if he's not emotionally connecting, that's why she was in the streets the first time. That's why all of this stuff is coming back to emotional aspect. Like that plays a role. So he has to find a way to connect and come back online, because that offline stuff ain't gonna work with that girl. If he keep that offline stuff where you just shut down and you go offline, it ain't gonna work with that particular girl, because she's got an attachment issue, I believe.
and just take it in that way. But it was just, emotional immaturity in a sense, so where I couldn't show that. Or
you're 20 years old.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. So that's why I always got to go back to age, because
Now, Lataris, I can't lie to you. This ain't about him being 20 years old. This is not about being 20 years old. Although I do believe that age plays a part. When I was 20, my dismissive avoidance was probably much greater than it was now. But at 20, I was still a dismissive avoidant person. Like, you learn through what you had experienced as a child. So while, yes, 20 years plays a role, the fact of the matter is he's conditioned from what he's experienced in his childhood. He's a product of what happened in that childhood home. And so he's carrying that into the relationship. There's not me cussing him, by the way. It's just me explaining what it is. Like, it don't matter if you're 20 or whether you're 30, because at the end of the day, you are still an adult. You will go to prison like an adult. So therefore, we have to look at you like an adult. So your behaviors are adulting. You have to look at them. Now, of course, at 20, I didn't know this either, which is why we're talking about this, so that other young people and people around us can actually learn and grow. Because at 20, I didn't know anything. You know what I'm saying? I didn't really know anything. But the reality of the situation is, at 20, there are people that are 20 that have emotional intelligence. There are people at 20 who are emotionally balanced. There are people at 20 who have a level of emotional regulation. So there's a lack of knowledge in this area because, I love that word, because of what he experienced in his childhood. So yes, whilst it is he's 20, it is not the factor of why he is the way he is. It is because there is a lack of knowledge in that area. And so ignorance plays a role. And the ignorance is that we go back to our default survival setting. There are 20-year-olds who are emotionally intelligent. Now, they might be a little bit foolish, but the way they handle emotional discourse is very different. Those of us who have a dismissive, avoidant attachment, yeah, you be 20 and you be 30 and you still do the same thing. You be 40 and do the same thing. Do we not know people who are 40 and still immature? Why is that? Because they never grew out of that. Age ain't the factor. It's the fact that you don't have the maturity in the emotional capacity and you do not have the knowledge. And so we need to get the knowledge to people, because that's what matures the individual. Now, of course, 20 is still 20, and I'm not discouraging that. I'm merely stating that so we can actually just learn to grow, because at 20 you can learn some things. You will not be perfect, you never will be, but you can learn enough to be able to, like, okay, I won't handle it that way. Because somebody who was secure, who was 20, if they grew up in a household that was secure, would have handled it differently. They would not be telling you I didn't have no emotions. They will not tell you I didn't feel anything. They will not tell you that I only had anger and sad. No. People who tell you that are because they grew up in households where it's dismissive, and that's all they know is that those are the acceptable emotions they can promote. You know what I mean? Trust me.
there's some 40-year-old men that can't even articulate their emotions. There's some 40-year-old women. There's some 50-year-old men and women that can't articulate their emotions, but you're 20 years old. You haven't even developed your frontal lobe. Your frontal lobe is the part of your brain that deducts reasoning. You don't even have that yet. That normally gets developed around 21 to 23. You didn't even have that yet. So you're just sitting there like, okay, and I ain't finna be no punk. I'm still, I'm a man. I'm finna marry this woman. So, I mean, I don't need them. You know what I'm saying? They got me to this point. I'm taking my wife and I'm gonna take her on through to death do we part. So,
Let me tell you why at 20 years old, he decided to ignore his parents, because he had an emotional disconnection from his parents. I'm just saying the truth. The reason why at 20 years old, he can reject what his parents said and marry this woman is because there was already an emotional disconnection. Look, at 20 years old, I can tell you what I was. I can tell you, in the household I grew up in, at 20, I didn't care what my dad said to me. And not because I was a rebellious teenager, but because at that point, there was an emotional disconnection. I did not trust his judgment because of the way he handled me emotionally. So therefore, it didn't matter what he said to me. I'm going to choose who I'm going to choose. I'm going to date who I'm going to date. And there's nothing you can tell me, because there was an emotional disconnection between myself and my parents. Now, we all go through the teenage years where we go into rebellion. We all do. We've all been through it, right? But there's a wisdom that comes upon you. Even if you've dealt with certain parents, there's a wisdom that comes with you if you've got parents that care about you and are a secure base. Okay, there is wisdom that comes over you when you've got a secure base, when you've got parents that genuinely love you. Most of us do not know what that feels like, so it feels like it's normal, because when we talk to other people, they've got the same environment. Oh no, they might tell you, oh, my parents are great, but when they actually tell you the full story of what they've been through, you're like, you in the same boat as me. You in the same boat as me. You went through the same thing. It just looked different, right? But and look, look at the way he's telling the story. Did he tell the story like it was traumatic? No, because see, most people don't even recognize the trauma that they're actually in. That's why when they tell the story, you won't even recognize it. But we can hear it because we're seeing it. And so you have to understand that at 20 years old, for him to be like, I'm gonna marry her anyway. Right? Jason, we do know something like that, exactly. Right? I'm gonna marry her anyway. Right? At 20 years old. The reason why is because there was an emotional disconnect. Okay, there was an emotional disconnect. Thank you, Smiles. I appreciate it. Yeah, that's genuinely what it was. And so a lot of us only know rebellion. A lot of us only know what we call, and rebellion is actually what we call hyper independence, or a lot of us only know that. Right? So the issue wasn't him marrying at 20. The issue was that he actually went against his parents, like I would have done at 20. Probably would have done. I would have done that at 25. You know what I'm saying to you? Now, if I get to now, I'm 33 now. Now, if my parents tell me if they tell me some solid reason, like, hey, son, I'm seeing this, this, and this. I'm like, well, Dad, look, I prayed about this. What's going on? What are you seeing? I would actually ask my parents, what are you seeing that I'm not seeing? I'm missing it. Let me know. I trust their judgment now. And it's not because I think they're even better parents than before. It's only because I've now seen the wisdom. I know there's wisdom on that side. Even if I don't agree with everything they say, I know there is wisdom on that side. So I now know that if I bring this information to them, hey, I can also deduct my own reasoning from it, but I'm going to trust what you're saying. Now, if you say something foolish, like, oh, you don't have no money, that's why. I'm going to look at you like, yeah, that don't make no sense for me. You know what I'm saying to you? But if you tell me, hey, Coach, Kojo, I'm looking at a situation and I'm not sure. Have you considered X, Y, and Z? I'm going to be like, you know what? I didn't actually consider it. What are you seeing that I should consider? Now, that's not me because, like I said, I'm going to say it. It's not because I have the greatest connection with my parents. No, it's because I've begun to understand there's wisdom on that side. I need to listen. And they're not trying to stop me from doing something. They haven't stopped me for how many years? Do you get what I'm saying to you? So, yeah. You know what I mean? So yeah, there's that thing, you know what I mean? So again, the age wasn't an issue. Age wasn't an issue of why they're marrying. That wasn't it. It's the fact that I love what Jay said. He bucked up against the system. And so he may not be loud, and pay attention to this, is very important. And this is where it's interesting. Oh man, this is interesting. Okay. Hold on. I'm getting a download and I want to be able to get this right. Okay. So what's really important about this, and I'm not going to be able to finish this live, I have to do this tomorrow. What's really powerful about this, yeah, is that he bucked against the system passively, aggressively. That's his issue. His issue is he passively, aggressively bucks up against the system, not aggressively. The reason why his parents were able to do what they did to his wife is because he's passive aggressive. Because had he been aggressive, he would have let his parents know, like, I'm marrying her, and the way you're talking to her, I'm not respecting it. I'm not respecting it. But he allowed the parents to disrespect the wife, yet he chose to also buck up against the system to go and marry her against their wishes. That's what I'm talking about. Those passive aggressive tendencies are going to filter into the relationship too. But the problem is that he's not very emotionally well versed because of what he was stunted in his own childhood, more than likely, right? So when you are emotionally neglected, when your parents don't take care of your emotional needs, when your parents aren't, sometimes it doesn't mean they don't have conversations. Sometimes it can be that your most important moments, they weren't there for you. Or maybe you told them stories and they told you didn't have no time for you. Or parents that were like, you know what, the church is more important than the household. They didn't say it to you, but you saw it, right? And children are very interesting. They tend to begin to fashion themselves in accordance to what they're seeing. So if the parents are spending too much time at church, children sometimes won't let you know that they feel affected by the amount of time you spend at church. They'll just be like, well, that's what my parents do, and I have to understand it. I've coached so many people that tell me, I've just got to understand it. Dismissive avoidance in general are very understanding of their parents. But the reality of the situation is they're hurt by what their parents do. So if the parent can't be there emotionally for them and they can't be there in their presence, right? They feel some type of way, but they rationalize, oh, no, there must be a reason why. Because processing that you're getting rejected is very painful. So rather than processing that you're being rejected, they process it as they have a reason, which is why when avoidance are dealing with someone, let's say for instance, an avoidance texts you, right? And you don't text them back for 4 hours. The avoidant goes, you don't rate me. And it's safer for me to take my distance than to allow you to mug me off. Anxious people don't do that. So for avoidance, what they say is, I must not be important enough. We internalize it to be about ourselves. You don't rate me enough. That's why you're not texting me. All right, cool. I'll go about my way. Right? Because they're not going to allow you to quote unquote disrespect them for a second time, because that's what they experienced in their childhood. So they're not going to allow it to happen a second time. But the reality is they never spoke up. What's the point of speaking up? Because if I speak up, my needs are not going to get met anyway. And if I speak up, it looks like I'm being beggy and needy. So there's no point in speaking up. So instead of speaking up with your parents, he passively aggressively does things, which is what dismissives do all the time. Dismissive avoidance will passively aggressively take back the power. So instead of just telling his parents, I am not going to listen, this money thing don't make sense. I am 20. She's 20. Where are we going to get more money to be financially stable? Right? So instead of him coming up and saying those words, he passively aggressively said, do you know what? It doesn't matter what my parents say. I love you more than anything else. I'm going to marry you. And let me tell you this now. Had I been his age, I would have done the exact same thing. You know why? Because I'm searching for love in the wrong places. Now, I'm not saying it's the wrong love, because if the Lord told you, the Lord told you. But because I'm searching for love, I put too much emphasis in that relationship. One thing I've noticed about fearful avoidance and dismissive avoidance too, all right? When they find someone that has broken their walls and has gone past the guard, and has got inside, oh, it's a deadly day. Because there is nobody that can tell that avoidant anything else. Because the fact of the matter is, they know themselves. They put so many walls up. So the fact that somebody got past all those walls, nah, they will defend you against their mama and their daddy and their grandma and their great-great-grandma. Moses himself can come and tell him something. You tell him, listen, I don't care what you say. This person broke all my walls and got in. There's no way I'm kicking them out. Get out of here. Clear off, man. And because it takes a lot to get past those walls. So they're going to be so loyal to that person. But we're seeing an immaturity because he hasn't come into his own just yet. You know what I'm saying to you? He hasn't come into his own just yet as a man. This is what my dad was seeing in me, and I didn't understand it. I can see this in you, son. I see this in you. You're not ready yet. You're not leading just yet. You need your own, my guy.
Well, I'm a man. I guess this is what manhood is supposed to be like.
Right.
And see, as men, we're so trained improperly on what manhood should look like. And it's always like in the worst circumstances. Like if you hurt yourself, your arm hanging off, don't cry. You're a man. Like my arm is hanging off. Like I see the tendons, like, you know, don't cry. It's never in situations where it's healthy to be able to say, you know, a man is, you know, love your wife, you know, cover her, pray for her, talk to her in a gentle voice. You know, I grew up in a household that was very loud. We loud. I talk loud to this very day. But if I remember that, began to be an issue when I began to date a woman who never grew up in that household. So I may be talking
Yeah.
You know, and that's the
Amazing
Today
relationship
we
now.
are.
y'all tight.
I
Yeah.
wouldn't trade her for.
Y'all thick as thieves now.
I love that woman.
And I told her before, I was like, you know, I honestly feel like you and my mom handle things so similarly.
In that situation, and we wish we would have made a better decision.
As far as like speaking on that specific situation, no. But as far as like the relationship and them developing a relationship, like her and my mom have an amazing
Today
relationship
we
now.
are.
Y'all tight.
I
Yeah.
wouldn't trade her for.
Y'all thick as thieves now.
I love that woman.
And I told her before, I was like, you know, I honestly feel like you and my mom handle things so similarly that y'all butt heads.
Yeah.
Because
Oh. And how does she handle things? How does she handle things? That's a question. How does she handle things? Now, if the mum was rude, it means that the mum is probably a very direct person, and the dad just takes it the same way. It can't be in my household. My dad will definitely run everything in this household. He will make a muss. He will make a muss. He will make a mess. He will make a muss in the household. My mom can't run them things there, you know. No offense, my mom. I love my mom. She has a lip as well. She got, you know, my mom can let them know in it. But you know, my dad will never let that run. You know what I'm saying to you? He'll never let that run. You know what I mean? He will never let it run. I used to hate the way my dad would deal with things until I realized when I grew up, hey, if you don't have boundaries, women will run over you. You know, you don't know. But what's intriguing about this, okay, is how come he said his mum and her run things the same way. Well, if the mum was being rude to her, it is suffice to say that this young lady who you've dated and married has the same kind of energy. And if that's the case, the way you're shut down, it tells me more than likely, I wonder if your dad is also passive too. I wonder. I don't know if that's necessarily the case. I don't know if he's passive, because it can be that the dad is very, very, very assertive, but he's just emotionally not present, right? So he can be very present physically, but not necessarily be emotionally present. You know what I'm saying to you? So she carries the same energy that your mom carries.
even at certain points in times of me growing up with my dad, we handled things so similarly that it would annoy him that I would do stuff the same way he would.
Same way he would.
And so it's like, okay, like it's basically the same thing that y'all are dealing with.
That's
and when they
good.
were finally able to come together and have those moments of like really talking and communicating, like it's beautiful to see now, because like at that time I would never have imagined that it is, what it is now.
How many years did it take to turn that thing around?
It was a long time.
Honestly, after his dad passed,
Yeah,
it really things started changing.
exactly.
Damn, so his dad had to pass before things changed. It is crazy work. It is crazy work. I said, get the frick out of here. Get the frick out of here. Okay. So the fact that the dad had to pass before the mum came round. At this point, I got to leave it, guys. I got to go to go-karting. We will continue part 2 after this. But this has been, you know what? I didn't know how, when I watched this recently, I didn't realize how deep it was again until I stopped certain points. I'm like, bruv, this is deep. This is deep. Like, there are so many components and moving pieces that get you to this point. You know what I mean? But this is the part we got to stop at. You know what I mean? We don't. I'll be back. I got to go to this go-karting. But, woo-wee, fam. Sticky situation. Okay, we'll be back, guys. I appreciate you listening. We'll go deeper again in part 2. I loved you guys' participation. It was very, very fun. And we're gonna go deeper. Okay, we're gonna go deeper. I appreciate you guys. Man, this is deep. I appreciate you guys. Stay locked, so we'll see you again soon.